Jimmy Capra talks about the moment it sunk in, how big this seizure was.
Sounds melodramatic, but I found myself as he's talking to me. Now I'm sitting on the curb because I slid off and he's telling me this. I'm realizing how serious he is. So I tell all the guys, I go, we got to get out here. So somebody takes this knucklehead, throws him in the local jail. We race out to Silmar. Inside, the guys in this warehouse, they're still trying to figure out, because it's dark, we couldn't find the switches. We couldn't find the light. Billy Huffman finally found the light switch. He turns it on. There's 36 pallets that are all got these yellow sheets on it, like you would see in Sam's or Costco. And there's 21 tons of cocaine in this warehouse.
Oh God.
And in some of the pallets, there's boxes and boxes of money. So there's nearly $12 million in cash with it.
Welcome to Game of Crimes. You know why? Because criminals need their sleep. By God, if you're going to get up and do your criminality, you got to get a good night's sleep.
Exactly
That's right.
So Sherman, because remember back then, Murph, we got no lights and sirens on our cars. We got nothing.
Yeah.
Sherman has a little red light. Said, dude, you got to get out there before 10. So Sherman takes off at Mach 7. We're babysitting these guys, hooking them up, going through the place and everything else like that. So get done. I go down to the car. And I get through the radio, said, get a hold of Mark Trujillo immediately. So I'm thinking, fuck, they got into a shooting. That's the first thing I'm thinking. I get a hold of Mark because Bill Huffman was the only guy. Remember the box phones? They look like old military sitting on
the old Motorola with
the bag phones. Yeah.
Antenna, the bag phones.
So I'm sitting in my car on the seat with my feet outside because I'm smoking a cigarette. And I get a hold of Trujillo. And I've never heard him so serious. I'm like, okay, I'm waiting to see who's hurt, who's not this. He goes, well, you got to get out here right away. I said, okay, what's the matter? Who's hurt? He goes, no. We have to find everybody. I go, okay. He goes, you don't understand. He goes, there's millions of dollars here, and I think there's at least 5,000 kilos here. And I went, oh, come on, Mike. He goes, Jimmy, and then I could tell how serious he was. Get the fuck out here. He goes, I've never seen anything like it. I'm like, it sounds melodramatic, but I found myself as he's talking to me. Now I'm sitting on the curb because I slid off and he's telling me this. I'm realizing how serious he is. So I tell all the guys, I go, we got to get out here. So somebody takes this knucklehead, throws him in the local jail. We race out to Silmar. Inside, the guys in this warehouse, they're still trying to figure out, because it's dark, we couldn't find the switches. We couldn't find the light. Billy Huffman finally found the light switch. He turns it on. There's 36 pallets that are all got these yellow sheets on it, like you would see in Sam's or Costco. And there's 21 tons of cocaine in this warehouse.
Oh God.
And in some of the pallets, there's boxes and boxes of money. So there's nearly $12 million in cash with it. And we have one guy in custody. I'm like, holy fuck, what do we do? I got Billy and I, 2 years on the job. I look at you and go, what the fuck do we do? What the fuck do we do?
2 years on the job. We got 21 tons of coke, 12 million in cash, and you're going, what do I do?
So
now you're talking probably, I'm looking at 21.38 tons. Yeah. So it's about 43,000 kilos of coke.
Yeah, never, so we call call the SAC. Right. I wind up calling the AUS.
And you thought it was just 100 kilos.
So here's what.
We got 100 kilos. No, you don't.
So we actually located the boxes that we saw going in. It was 1.8 million in the boxes. It wasn't dope. They had just picked up money from some of these guys. And also inside, we have all these ledgers that are sitting on it. That's just ledgers. And I'm like, holy shit. So that's when the nightmare started. We called our boss, called the U.S. attorney and assistant U.S. Jim Walsh, who was the head of criminal at the time, who I always got along with really well. Susan Bryan Dixon, who was a shark when it came. She was a cross-designated prosecutor. She got out there. And Doc Murdoch was one of the guys that was with me. And Doc, to his credit, I got to tell you, because I'm like, where the hell am I going to find these guys? And Doc said, you know what, Jimmy, these guys, based on the condo and everything else, he found a matchbook that had a hotel in Hollywood on. He goes, I'm telling you, I think these guys, they like to live big too. Okay, Doc, what do you think? He goes, let me take some guys and go out to Hollywood. And him and John Emerson and a couple other guys went out there. They went to this is what we just think about it. Went up to, damn it, one of the fancy places in Hollywood, one of the fancy hotels in, Beverly Hills, or I forget.
The Beverly Hills Hilton?
Yeah, something like, They go in.
Which was made famous in Hollywood or in the Beverly Hills Cop.
So they go in and go, hey, this is who we are. We're looking for these people in this name. Oh, yes, sir. They're in this room. Okay, great. Because they're smart guys. These guys are a little bit more senior. They go, can you pull up their folios? Yeah. Okay, they're making phone calls to this hotel and this hotel. Hey, thanks. Send another team to that hotel. They did the same thing there. Then they're calling a hotel in Vegas. Susan Bryan Deason. We show her all the stuff and everything. She goes, we're getting state paper for those rooms, this room. Kick the door in. These guys, we get these guys. They're all Mexican nationals. One guy actually is a citizen, served time in the military, but he's from Mexico. By the time the next morning came, because we were out there all night, we have everybody in custody. So it's an entire family out of Mexico. Their father was a Mexican customs guy, related to one of the, and I didn't know at the time, I didn't know about cartels in Mexico. Nope, none of us really knew a whole lot about who it was, but connected to some major players in Mexico. Rafael Munoz Talavera was the head of it. He was tied into some of the major families in Mexico. It took us a while to realize that. The ledgers showed in a 3-month period, just their money, they were getting $1,000 to $1,500 per kilo to move. And all of it was Colombian dope. The marking showed, what we realized is the marking showed it was split between the Medellin and the Cali cartel. And all these guys were this Mexican group here, these Mexican traffickers, were nothing more than the Teamsters for the Colombians.
Hey, and let me ask you a question about that, Jimmy. Did you, during the course of the investigation and later on, did you become aware, did Cali know Medellin had their dope, that they were mixed together? Did they care?
I don't think they cared. They didn't care. I mean, there was pretty confident. And the reason we know this, because everybody rolled initially. The old man, the head of the family, didn't. But the two main guys that were there, they actually rolled. The main guy who did everything rolled. And I'll never forget, he said, hey, he goes, I'm not a drug dealer. He goes, like when somebody buys oranges and moves them to groceries, that's what I do. That's all I do. I just move stuff. I'm not a drug dealer. That's So we.
And by the way, it's not heroin. I mean, it's heroin and real drugs. This is just kiddie dope.
Yeah, this is just kiddie dope.
And how many bodies did you guys put in custody that night?
I want to say 7 or 8, because we had ties to Vegas. So we sent DEA Vegas out and to the Flamingo, and the whole family was having a big get together. And these guys were supposed to be out there the following day to meet everybody to party. And we wound up arresting the old man, the head Hector Tapia, who was the head out there, the father who was the patriarch. Actually, everybody went to jail, and we had to release a few people, family members. But we had a great prosecutor in Susan Bryan Deason, great federal prosecutor from Jim Walsh. Really good teamwork all the way around. You look back, we could have done things better. Throughout the night, this guy's getting calls to pick up money. So somebody says, well, if you could do it again, I said, if you could do it again, we would be quiet and we'd be going out picking up money. We could have picked up money all night long. We could have probably had about, this is not like, oh, that sounds good. Probably another 30 or 40 million by the next morning.
Oh my gosh.
So, and what we would find out is, and I'll tell you the craziness about it. So when we talked to the principal guy that was controlling everything in LA, and he was telling us this, now I got to pick up, I got to do this, and looking at the ledgers, when he was explaining stuff to us, because he didn't see himself as a criminal. I mean, it's so funny how some of these bad guys look at each other. But he told us everything about it. He says, like, they take, they either get anywhere from 1,000 to a couple thousand kilos a week that come up from El Paso. And he said that the Colombians owed them a ton of money. They owed him a ton of money for a lot of dope. He said, how did he say it? They're customers. And they called him up and said, we're not sending you another kilo unless you pay up. Now, when I first told that to people, because 3 days later I would find myself in D.C. in the command center as a GS9 talking to people, and I didn't know who the hell they were. I know they were important.
Yeah.
And I was telling them this, and I got this. No, that doesn't happen. That's not going to happen. The Colombians would kill everybody. And I would go, are you fucking kidding me? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Aren't these the same guys that said, kids, you don't know what you're talking about? There's nothing going on here.
So you think the Colombians would come up into Mexico with these guys, and they're going to be intimidated by these guys? What have you got a F in mind? So, but they did. And so the week before we hit, there was another 5,000 kilos in there and another 4 or 5 million that was in there. But there was that much dope in there because the Colombians weren't paying. So they just said, hey, we're going to pick up their money, and that's what we're going to do.
So because of a fluke in bad business, I mean, this dope should have been gone, right? Had it been going through like it should have, how much dope would have been in the warehouse?
Funny, I get asked that a lot of time, but all I can tell you is based on the ledgers, they would get somewhere between 20 and 30 tons in a short period of time. And when I mean a short period of time, I mean within a month and a half. And so in the 3 months that I got the ledgers from, they made 81 million. It was theirs, 81 million in 3 months. 81 million was their transportation costs.
Wow.
So, and they were, they had houses in El Paso, but they really had kind of estates down in Mexico. One guy was building basically a palace on an entire block down there. And, we weren't working too well with the federales back then, like we do today. But so there were some issues, and then we know there was a lot of corruption issues south of the border, and then there were some. I don't know if it ever panned out. We just passed it. There were some allegations because they never lost a load. They would bring loads across into El Paso, and they never lost a load. Think about that. 2 years in place, they never lost a load. It's kind of hard to believe. But they never.
So, what's your theory on that?
So, I think they probably did. They probably had somebody on both sides of the border. That's, we hate to think that way. To be honest with you, it still kills me to think. But you got to think, and plus, I think the other thing is we didn't have the tools that we have now. You know what I mean? Or even shortly thereafter. I don't think we have the tools or the information. And I have always said, I had a lot of respect for the Border Patrol, now CBP and everybody else. They have to make a split decision on passing somebody through, or you know what I mean? That's pretty tough.
Well, when you got those tens of thousands of cars lined up, all you got to do is go to your favorite search engine and look at the vehicles out there. You've got to pass people through. Yeah. I mean, one of the most effective tools they had, Murph, and it's when we talked to JP about it, but some other folks as well. When Kiki was killed, and they were trying to get cooperation from the government, the U.S. government just shut down the borders. Like,
and that was from
nobody's coming across.
From U.S. Customs Director Von Raab, I think his name is, who I still say had balls bigger than anybody because he didn't give a shit back then. We got an agent down, but getting back to this one, like I said, I find myself in DEA headquarters as a kid, and before I went up there, I remember going to Trouble at his house. I go, dude, what are they going to ask me? I don't know what to do. So we said,
and how many years and months do you have on it? How long have you been a sworn DEA agent by this point?
It was 1989. When we hit September 1989, I came on in 87. In August of 87, I got to LA.
Dude, you still are wet behind the ears. Here you are.
So
you said a GS9 too, real quick. When you got hired, were you a 7 or a 9?
My dad's son came on as a 9, some bitch. I came on as a GS freaking 7. I had military. I was a military. I could go in the skiff in the Pentagon. I go, no, you're not. You're a GS 7. You're shit. Oh, okay.
So you are still. You're basically like a private first class. If we were thinking military,
so I never forget going to Mark Truval, and I'm like, Mark, holy shit, they're going to ask me questions. He goes, no. He's got I swear to God, I think we're drinking Budweiser. He gets a Budweiser can. Thank goodness, Mary Ellen, his wife, is an Intel analyst. And I go, what do we know? She goes, here's what we're going to do. She rolled out this piece of paper. We got the Intel can. That's probably what it was. It was a Bud can. He puts it on top, puts a circle, and goes, who's the top guy? I said, well, I think it's this guy. Okay, now I'm going to draw lines down here. Who are these guys? I think this guy. All right, that sounds good. So now I had a chart. You didn't know how important this chart was going to be. Now I have a chart. It goes, This is what you do. A, B, C, D, F, G. You go, oh God, I'm going to get fired. I don't know who these people are. Who I got to talk to?
Well, when you went to headquarters, did the SAC or an ASAC or your GS go with you?
Nope. No, they just no. Back then, man, it was just like. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a quick story. So the GS I had at the time, who's a good guy,
and GS group is supervisor. A group supervisor. Yeah,
Billy and I have been up for, and as most of the team is, for like going on 40 hours. Coming out of the warehouse, another group was going to take care of locking it down. We already put the dope and the money away, and we got the dope and tractor trailer. So Billy comes out, and he's heading to his car, and the supervisor at the time looks at Bill. Now, mind you, we just seized. It was in the Guinness Book of Records for a while. Actually, it was in the Guinness Book of Records as the LAPD seizure, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
So now we have effectively got the largest trafficking organization in the history of the country, plus with dope in hand and everything else like that.
And money.
So Billy and I are coming out of the warehouse, and the supervisor at the time looks at Bill. This is what he says. He goes, "Hey, you need an oil change on your car. Make sure you get that done." Bill looks at him and goes, "Fucking kidding me?" That's what he was concerned about.
That's an inspection item.
A few weeks later.
Oh my God.
A few weeks later, the guy comes into the whole group as our stats are down. I go, our stats are down. The entire division should shut down, but at the time it didn't. You know, it's not like a handful of years ago. I mean, it was way different, man.
Well, wait a minute. How your stats are down? What do you mean? After you seized 21 tons, of course your stats are going to be down.
September 28th when we hit it. Now we're in October. In mid-October, the boss is going,
which is a new fiscal year.
We got to get going.
Oh my!
So again, listen, that was then. A lot has changed for the good and for the better. And I'm not just saying because
I know,
but we were still an old school DEA. You know, like what?
It's like being in sales and you just hit a $10 million account and you've made your quota for the next 3 years.
No, the quarters,
and then
next quarter's
month, it's like real estate.
Dude, you haven't got shit.
Yeah, it's like real estate. What have you done for me lately? What have you sold lately?
So in doing the case, you start to, so there's a level of, I said, everybody's got to mature on the job. We mature as human beings, as, you know, as men, as women. And you realize, man, there is a lot I didn't understand. I didn't know. It's not because of your fault. It's just, you're learning and you're going. And so there's a level of, there's a maturity process that you have to go through. And so I still, so my dad loved being a cop. He when he would talk about it and everything, it wasn't hero stuff. But my dad had no idea what an agent was, what a marshal was. If you had a badge and a gun, you were a cop and you were a good guy. That's how it was.
Now, was your dad's, we know your dad passed away. Was he still alive when you made the seizure?
No. My dad got to see me cross the stage and get my badge and creds, and he was gone about a year later, 2 years later. But no, before that, just actually, he passed 6 or 7 months before we did the seizure, and he probably wouldn't have really understood it. But that's besides the point. What I'm getting to is, so my idea of law enforcement is everybody's a good guy. There's some bad guys out there. But everybody's a good guy. And I believe that. So you start getting phone calls from people saying, hey, so now I have these ledgers. Hey, could you send me your ledgers? Could you send me a copy of your ledgers? I say, could you send me a copy of this? I sit at my desk, go, absolutely. What do you need? And then you realize, hey, son of a bitch, I can't believe this. Guys are putting in OCDETH cases and they're showing little Selmar cases, this tiny little thing off to the side. But their cases, it's like, my guy went to your warehouse. When I started realizing some of that was happening, I would get a call and say, hey, can you send me some pictures? I said, no, what do you got? Well, my guy said he went to the warehouse. I said, well, what's his name? Well, I want to be careful. I said, I know everybody's in the warehouse. I know all the guys. They talk to me. So what's his name? No. The guy started getting pissed at me. I go, no, I'm not doing that shit. But I did initially. I sent stuff out. And even the U.S. Attorney's Office was calling me, go, hey, I just got this chart from like Minnesota showing that they have the biggest case in the universe. They have 1 kilo and they're using ours to send a guy to friggin' jail for life for 1 kilo. I'm like,
unbelievable.
So, again, we're much better today and stuff. And you learn fast and you learn quick. But it was good. We worked on it for the next 6 years. And then I'm leaving out El Paso. El Paso DEA did an amazing follow-up job down there. They really did. And they wound up getting the accountant and everything else who gave us more information how things were done.
Well, did you guys track it back to which cartel in Mexico was running this?
So this is early on in '89, and I'm trying to think of Munoz Talavera, and if I had Billy on the line, he'd probably be able to tell you. But remember, it was, first of all, nobody at the time, and I say nobody, a lot of individuals, included people in Intel, didn't believe how powerful that the Mexican cartels were becoming, or even if they existed. They would say, well, these are old weed runners, and these are old anything for buck smugglers. And I'd go, no, you don't understand. These guys are powerful. They're taking over everywhere. Everywhere we turn in LA, we're not seeing Colombians, Bolivians, or Peruvians. We're seeing Mexican groups. Well, they're working for the Colombians. I go, I think they're and that's what we found out is they literally were buying wholesale dope from them and cutting them completely out of it. Cutting them completely out of it. They know that this was their dope. This was their trafficking organization. This was their network. And in a few years later, we realized, holy crap, they've taken over much of the United States. And I will never forget talking to Derek years later. So I get a phone call. I'm now a supervisor in Newark, New Jersey. And I get a call from DEA headquarters. Says, hey, somebody's on from DEA headquarters. Some muckety, I think it was whoever the chief of domestic operations was at the time, says, you need to come to a meeting. I said, come to a meeting with them? What are you talking about? He said, the administrator, who was Constantine at the time, is not satisfied with the response that he's getting from people in headquarters because he doesn't believe they still know what the hell's going on with the Colombian or the Mexicans. So you're going to get your ass up here and brief on this thing. I'm like, okay. So you go to this meeting now in the command center. Now I'm a little bit settled. Now I'm, been working in Newark for a year or so. And so it's come time for me and guys are saying shit. And I'm going, that's not how it's happening. What are you talking? And now you're talking to people that listen. In my military DEA time, I'm not trying to be fuck you guy. I'm just sir. I'm not too sure that here's what we found out. Well, how do you know that? Well, because they all talk to us. Well, how do you know that? Well, because we verified it with these numbers. Well, how do you know it's coming from them? Well, because this operation that we have can tell you where the kilos are coming from. And so people were still kind of speculating what the hell was going on in life. And then SOD comes online, SOD starts to come online. And now the pictures really become, and they realize, holy crap, this is how powerful these organizations have become. Not only that, at the time, the Colombians here in the United States, very rarely, you didn't see a whole lot of violence on them, but from the Mexican traffickers, if you weren't holding up your end of the bargain, you were dying,
So have you seen Narcos Mexico?
I haven't. No, I haven't.
They portray, because they make reference to your seizure. I think it's towards the end of season 2, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, they were showing that everything was being run by Miguel Felix Gallardo back then. Yeah,
that's the name. That is the name. And here's the deal. So Gallardo, thank you for doing that. It struck my mind. Gallardo was related to Tapia Ponce, who was the border customs guy. His daughters married. It was all a familial thing. They're all married into each other at the time, and it was Gallardo. And thank you for saying that because I got
No.
And Munoz Talavera was the main guy dealing with Gallardo at the time. Well, Tapia winds up not Tapia. Munoz Talavera winds up going to jail for something other than what we had on him, and then a handful of years later, got out, got some work done on his face, and then he's walking around and gets a bullet in his head. They were done with him. So
that plastic surgery doesn't help too much with that.
Didn't help at all. But it really kind of cemented in how much dope was coming into. I remember when I went up. By the time I got up back to headquarters, when I was being asked to come in, they were asking me. I said, "You realize after the LA seizure?" And I went and brought up a bunch of seizures across the country, which were huge seizures, both in terms of the customs, New York, and everything else. And in a 3-month period, the United States had seized like 45 tons of cocaine in our country. I said, "You realize by springtime, the price nothing dropped, nothing went down, because we're so galvanized, like we were using criminal trafficking, conditions like they were boardroom conditions for widgets. Like, why are you?"
Right.
People that didn't go. People are arguing that. I go, do you know what the overhead is? The overhead is body bags and bullets. And one of the things we learned, well, these guys they're using guys to put them on boats and bring up. I go, yeah, they're promising all these guys tens of thousands of dollars, and they're not coming through. Everybody's owed something. Oh yeah, but we got to use business mentality for criminal activity. And every time we do that, we go, something doesn't make sense. Yeah, you dumbass, because they're criminals.
Yeah. These aren't legal business. People say, oh, well, Pablo Escobar, if he'd have been a legitimate businessman, he'd have been extremely successful. He'd have been just as successful.
No, he's a goddamn criminal who was killing people. Anybody who throws a 9-year-old on a vat of acid, we don't, like, somebody tried arguing with me that, Murph. Listen to this. And I said, the difference is Sears and Macy's don't have these meetings and they kill off each other. That's not how it works.
Right.
That's fear and intimidation. Yeah. But even people in our, let me modify that. During the time, people in our business and our profession were trying to say that. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you? This doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and it's like you used to get the drug annual drug assessments, telling you how many hectares are. So now there's only this many kilos in the world, and you seize more than that by the end of the year. It's like, where are you coming up with this? I know. Have you actually gone out and seen coca leaves in a hectare in a field in another country? Oh no, I sit here in my room.
I got pictures. It's good. I got pixels. These pixels tell me what they are. But I mean, it really kind of cemented how much dope was coming into the country. It really kind of cemented the problem that we had is substance abuse in the country. Where we were to where we are today is really, there's a big, kind of a big difference, even though we have this opioid crisis today. And I don't want to get off track, but I keep coming back to a lot of that has to do with our willingness to keep legalizing fucking weed and shit. So, but as long as we keep doing that.
Absolutely, brother.
We keep doing that, we're going to keep having issues. But getting back to the big cases. Yeah. So that's how that happened. Unfortunately, at the time, we should have shut down, the leadership should have shut down the whole division to kind of work that kind of stuff. But that's not, that wasn't the mentality at the time. So it's easy to look back, right? It's easy to look back in 20, so
hindsight 2020.
You just can't do it. We did some great work. We learned a great deal. It's just the way things, kind of were at the time.
And I just want to reiterate a little bit here because I want to make sure our listeners understand exactly the significance of what you did. You changed the whole philosophy of the way. I mean, you brought it up to date. Is what you did. What that you were changing. You just discovered it and brought it up to date. That we no longer have the major route coming through South Florida because we had the South Florida Task Force. You had the military out there with their big balloons with radars over the horizon. You had the P3s up running, and they put a nice dent in that. But like you said, like Morgan said, they relocated their efforts up through Mexico. The Mexicans were smart enough to realize how to do this and make a profit and how to corrupt people and how to make payoffs.
They use their existing routes.
Exactly.
So when I got
because they were already smoking buttload of weed up in the United States.
When I got asked that, about South Florida and all this other stuff, I said, look, there's still dope coming in there, but I'm telling you, the majority of the cocaine coming in from the country is coming across the Southwest border. It's being staged out here, out west, and being sent back to places across the United States. And so you get a lot of
I think it's still like that today.
You get a lot of weird looks and people, I don't know about that. I go, okay, let me go back to getting trucks. I mean, I don't care if you don't believe it. I don't give a rat's ass. To be at the time when you're that young, fine. Make shit up.
You're putting dope on the table.
Yeah. So when you say, what's your evidence? I said, well, I'll show you the dope and I'll show you the bad guys and stuff. But again,
what's your evidence?
Yeah, good Lord. You don't want to, it's like there's a couple of places out there on social media where guys are retired for 15 years and are still complaining about I never want to be that guy. You know what I mean?
I'm with you, brother.
I love this outfit. I lived through some stuff. Everybody does. I mean, Morgan, even through the police department, right? You look back and go, Jesus, it's amazing we got this far. And when you look back on it, it's just the way it is, man. If you mature on it, and we did, as an agency, we learned from it. And we got men and women in positions that said, wait, we got to look beyond that. We got to look at, and so nothing's perfect, but we still have young men and women who, like I said,
they're dedicating their life.
Let's go out there and get bad guys. Let's take dope off the street and put bad people in jail, man. So,
You know what? You've probably experienced this too, Jimmy, where Javier and I get calls from media outlets all the time, especially once you talk to them, they think you're their best friend now.
I
They
know,
think can continually recall you. And they want you to give blurbs about what's going on in the drug market.
yeah,
And I tell them, we're not going to talk about this. You need to talk to the
yeah,
experts. Go to DEA
yeah,
headquarters. I'll give you the phone number, 202-307-1000.
and
You know, I retired in 2013. I've been retired almost 9 years now. I'm not the expert
yeah.
anymore.
And plus, a lot of times they're trying to kick us in the friggin', in the galloons, to make a point of something. And there was a guy out of Virginia who worked for USA Today, and I talked to him a couple of times years ago. And the second time I talked to him, came out in the papers, and it was like I was beating up DEA, and I had to call, since I was still on the job, I called, this is bullshit, and I never answered his call after that. So now you son of a bitch.
Right.
But anyway, we
Well,
learned a lot from that case, and then we continued out in LA.
Hey, well, Jimmy, let's not close down this case yet. We're going to move on to what you're working on now and a couple other things, but let's get some resolution of this case. So tell us, by the time you got done making this case, did it lead to other things? And also, how many people ended up getting indicted, ended up going to jail? Give us the aftermath of what happened
Well,
here.
the entire family, because it was a family affair, the principal guys that we arrested were all married to the Tapia family. So I want to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think 7 or 8, and a couple of guys in Mexico. I don't know if they're still in jail, but we took the entire family off. We never got from this case, we were not able, and in El Paso, who did the follow-up, who did a great job, wound up getting the accountant and a few other people. So they really,
Wow.
they did a great, and that accountant rolled.
You always got to go after the accountant.
And
they
Yeah,
know where the
baby.
money and the
and
bodies are
having
buried.
spoken to that
Yep.
guy, having spoken to that guy, he basically knew that the other guys running the show he said, they were stupid. He was a lot smarter, and he was looking to take over, but he was the accountant. And so he was the guy that was doing all the ledgers. And so we got a chance. So now I got all these ledgers, and I'm going, just got it. So I am running numbers. So let's say we got 12, 13 people with El Paso, another 5 or 6. You're still working. We did this thing for 6 years. So I'm looking at these, and I'm running everything through our databases, every number that was on everything. And I get this one hit out of South Florida. One hit, and I see a case, and there's a guy named Dave Bora who's doing something. So I call down there. I say, I need to speak to Dave Bora. I say, hey, Dave, Jimmy Capra, Captain America. I said, we did this case up here. I got ABCD, and I says, I keep getting this number. And before I could spit it out, I said, they go by El Doctor. He goes, that's Willie Falcone and Sal Magluta's operation. I said, what? Who are they? He goes,
That's the cocaine
those
cowboys.
that's what Tony Montana was about. I said, what are you talking about? Scarface. He goes, yeah. He goes, the biggest dope dealers for years down here and across the country. I said, well, this is what we got. I got these ledgers. I got this, that, and the other thing. He said, Jimmy, we're in the process of prosecuting people, but we're trying to get Willie and Sal. It's like going after who's that bad guy in the 20s that we got him on IRS violations. That's what they were looking
Was
at.
Al Capone. He didn't go to jail for murder.
No.
He went to jail because you learned the one lesson. It's not illegal to avoid taxes. It's just illegal to evade taxes. And that's why Al Capone went to the most famous prison of all.
So I go to Sal. I talk. Now I'm talking to. He is a walking, talking encyclopedia about all things these people. Then I hook up with Jane Engelstadt, another agent who's they're like doing stuff by themselves. I'm like, good God in heaven. So we start dealing with, I go down there, they have ledgers. I match our ledgers up with their ledgers with Willie and Sal. I'm like, this is incredible. This is, holy crap. So they're excited. They're the prosecutor down there, again, I'm sorry, was a great guy. Says, okay, we're going to go to trial. We're going to use these ledgers. We're kind of looking at this stuff, and he has a couple of guys that are rolling. So now get this. Now we go from our transporters now to guys that are actually drug traffickers in the United States, moving, making money. They're buying from those guys. They have a network of people selling dope all over the country. Now they're going after them. Now, so I am now the guy that's hopefully going to help them do that. So he has a couple of guys that are rolled. They're all big money guys that work for the organization. So he says, hey, listen, I got this guy who's an informant. He said, we're going to, we got to get scheduled to have you come down and you're going to talk to him and everything. I said, great. So I go down. and what was happening beforehand, I think it was a year earlier, Willie and Sal, as they're as they're getting witnesses, Willie and Sal are killing people. They're killing they're killing DEA witnesses.
Yeah.
So I get a call because this guy's going to roll. He wants to roll. So I get down there. I forget what hotel I was staying with. It doesn't matter. I'm going to meet with Dave for a couple of beers and everything. And I'm waiting. He's not showing up. So he comes in. I see him, and he's walking fast towards me. We're supposed to meet this guy the next morning. I said, and looking at him, just got this concerned look at him. I said, hey, what's up? He goes, they just whacked. Got the guy's name, Benny or something. He said, they just whacked him. I said, what do you mean they just whacked him? Must have found out we're going to talk to him. He says, his dad got a phone call from the cops. They was on the phone. They put a bullet in his head, and then I killed his brother. I'm like, holy shit. Holy crap. What the hell is going on? And so they finally did. They finally were able to go to trial on these guys. And then they had guys like Roy Black and everything as their defense attorneys. And I was on the stand for maybe 45 minutes and literally didn't get a whole lot in. But I think they still grabbed the guy. So it was pretty neat to see that kind of connection there from the transporters, to the actual traffickers in the United States, that kind of impact that was going on there, but violent.
Well, that's one of the new series that's well, it's not real. It's, I guess, in the past year on Netflix, The Cocaine Cowboys. I think it's 4 episodes. Yeah. And it's about Falcone and Magruder.
Well, Dave Bohr and Jane Engelstadter, and that prosecutor down there, they lived, breathed. There wasn't anything that I talked to them about that they didn't know. I was kind of guessing. They go, no, it's like, holy mackerel, man, you guys better write this crap down.
Well, you watch that series, and I'll be honest with you, I think Netflix kind of glamorized it. These murderers.
They did. We were looking at reviewing it for the Narcometer, but we decided that, with the series that made it too tough. But they did. They glamorized it. They're in their speedboats. They're nice guys. They do this.
Well, that's how dipshit got caught. And so an LA County sheriff
flaunting his
he looked
wealth.
on it, and they had the speedboat races, and he looked and he said, that's Willie Falcone. They were at a warrant out for him. That's Willie Falcone. Wow. And he started making phone calls, and sure as shit, he was out there racing speedboats.
What a dumbass. They got what they deserved there.
Yeah, but it kind of goes to your point real quickly, too. A lot of people made that mistake thinking, well, if Pablo had just done this, or if these guys had just did, no. What worked for them was because they killed people. They could enforce things. They were brutal. And the other thing, too, that's just amazing, a lot of folks think, these guys must be smart to be able to avoid the cops and do stuff. Now, you know what they were? They're one of those people, when you high in a sea of a lot of other dope traffickers, something has to happen for you to come up to where you become obvious. And with Falcone and Magluta, it was freaking obvious what they were doing. They're getting their names on TV. They're showing speedboats. I mean, they did everything possible to make sure people notice them. It was the ego that brings a lot of these people down.
And the other thing is they get loyalty from people because you got guys who are not making any money, and you give them $1,000 a week, and they're like, "I'll do anything for you." It's kind of as you well know, Murph, down in South America. People said, "Oh, I don't understand people." I said, "Look, you got a guy that's making 2 pesos a friggin' month, and a guy comes along and says, "I'll give you 1,000 pesos they'll do anything."
You're going to be loyal to him.
What are you going to do? You got a dirt farm. You got to feed your family. I'm not talking about the ethical positioning. I'm just talking about living life. That's what you're up against. I mean, that kind of stuff is what you're up against. So, and people don't understand that. They look at it through our eyes and go, during that time frame, if you remember, we, especially with Colombia, because again, corruption is the linchpin. So if you can corrupt people, you can, and the whole thing with the traffickers down there, you lived it. That's the way they got things done. They were able to corrupt political officials, people here, everything else like that with money. And then if you didn't do the right thing, you and your family were killed, kind of killed off. Not kind of, but that's just the way, it happened. I remember saying we could never work with the Colombians. We can't work with them. And then fast forward years later, they're like the premier counter narcotics guys in the country. And when I went down to visit as the chief of ops, I never forget, they were getting ready to go to friggin' North Africa to train them for best practices. And amazing, it's an amazing thing. And part of that, again, I'm talking to the expert, but I think the Colombian people had enough. The political party had the will to do what they did. And that agency said, hey, we're getting too many men. They still get people killed.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, I mean, Javier Pena and I are the ones that made them what they are today.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, but you know
That's
what?
my story, and I'm sticking
the
to
other
it.
thing, to be honest with you, because of that, I think we started becoming, I think, a little bit more ballsy about how to do investigations. We said, you know what, let's not just do, the buy busts are important. First of all, I think they're important. I mean, they're important when you can do them, but
But they're
it's a
a tool
tool
among
if you
many
can
tools that you
if you can
have.
do that.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
you use that to get to the next thing and all. That doesn't happen all the time. And
It's a gateway.
yeah,
It's a
a lot
gateway
of people say, "Oh, if you
investigation.
haven't done," I can tell you how many times on two fingers I did undercover, and I'm terrible. I was terrible at it. I flashed
Mhm.
$65,000 in a hotel uh, bar lobby, and I think it was a half in the bag at the time. Hey, there you go. I think I was big shot.
Yeah, but
Hey,
part
that's a
of your
perk.
problem, Jimmy, was you kept wearing the Captain America
Yeah,
shirt, and carrying around,
but
And you had your 2x2
yeah,
pouch on.
exactly. But back then it was the fanny pack with the five
Yeah.
shot.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
Nothing says undercover cop like wearing a
yeah,
fanny pack. Oh my
we used to
God.
say, hey, really it did for a lot of us. It said, hey, let's not be so. You start learning again. You realize, hey, maybe we can do this, and bosses started going, hey, maybe we should do this, and so you start getting controlled deliveries, and you're going, hey, man, let's see how far we can take this. And people would say, wait a minute,
Well, you know
you're going
what?
to put dope in a car and you're going to give it to the
Yeah.
bad guy? Yeah, and we're going
Yeah.
to follow him. And we're going to do this. And so, which we started doing that, and we started being successful. And the reason we were successful, not because anything independent, is because we worked with some phenomenal cops and task force and
Yes.
other agencies that said, "Hey, yeah, we'll
That's
jump on a
right.
bandwagon with you. What do you need?" I mean,
And then,
that's
and as technology progressed, we were able to use technology to help
yeah,
protect
no.
that load.
So that led to that started leading to, at least in LA, finally, to be honest with you, people started waking up and going, "The hell's going on out there in Los Angeles?" That's why
Mm-hmm.
by the time I got to Newark, you're getting called back and said, "Hey, can you tell us what's going on out there?" And I'm being facetious, not just me, but Intel people and everybody else. I think the 3 hour time difference. Honest to God, I swore by it. I said, "Think that's it, or we're not doing the job we should be of getting that information to decision makers." That's part of it too.
But something too, it's one of those things you think about it again, just thinking logically, how else are you going to get that much dope into LA unless it either comes by
Yeah.
truck, comes by aircraft, comes by ship? Because you cannot have a convoy of cars big enough to carry the amount of dope it takes to feed the needs of
No.
LA, because they'd be getting after pretty soon they'd be getting I mean, you're going to get some loads, but the big loads like you talk about, they got to be coming in by bigger forms of transport, and trucks are a natural way.
No. Yeah. 100%. It's funny because all this led to. Um, all this led to, like I said, all when you're learning all these things, you start going, and then you realize, hey, we have talented men and women. We really do.
Mm-hmm.
We have men and women who are risk. Every operation is a risk inherently, but saying, because you look at, right, rewards and what am I going to get out of it versus this. And so we started doing some of these controlled deliveries out there. The people said, "Oh, that's a little bit dangerous." No, let's take it. And it wound up going into, we did a case, which is, as far as I know, still the largest controlled delivery on record of 5 tons of cocaine coming up in the border. And
Dang.
I'll never forget, Mike Bansmer was a GS. I was now in a different group. It was years later, and he calls and he basically says, "Hey, they got an undercover kid from Massachusetts is doing a case. Supposedly going to bring 5 tons of cocaine up." I said, "Oh," and this is so. This is what's weird by that time. So I went, "Oh, great, great." So I talked to this kid Ferguson and he's been dealing with a good informant. Anyway, long and short of it is, this is the first thing you do now. Now okay, there's 5 tons supposedly coming up. Contact all your state, local, sergeants. Say, this is what we got. And so, honestly, you just call everybody. And here's the good thing. But now you've established, not just me, but DEA established a reputation amongst our state and local partners that said, "Hey, we're on board. Let's go." And so you have this meeting. So I meet with this kid, and he says, "I met with these guys. I told them we got this network. They're going to bring 5 tons across the border. We're going to take it. We're going to bring it to LA, and we're going to deliver it to them, and they're going to pay me $2 million." So me, again, because I'm chucklehead, and I go, "Okay, let's do that." So I get all these teams together. Got about, I don't know what probably initially about 70 or 80 cops of teams, have a meeting, and I go, so I got all the sergeants there. I said, this is what's going to happen. So the undercover starts getting a phone call from a payphone. So we log, this is 101. Remember, pagers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm working with good cops. This is not just my idea. These are guys, we're sitting together. Just get a pager, got a pager. Where's that? Run it. It's that phone booth down in the corner of Walk and Don't Walk. Put a team there. Okay, put those guys there. Can't find the guy. The next day, calls from 2 others. We put a team on 3 different phone booths. And, and we just wait. He gets a call from one of the ones that we got a team on. They got him. There's no dope yet, but it's supposedly coming. They put that guy down in 2 different locations out Riverside. Calls from another place. By the time we were done, by the time the dope got here, we had identified 6 locations ready just because of police work. Just because of, and sat teams on there. Said, okay, they got so many teams we had. They get the dope, comes across the border. It comes up.
So don't sugar or don't gloss past that part. Tell us how the dope came across. What was it coming in? How had they hidden it? And what arrangements did you make for it to get successfully through customs?
The undercover did most of the work, and his team out of Massachusetts did most of the work with. It was customs back then. Still customs back then too had a gate. They told them we had a corrupt guy and he was going to let got guns. So I forget how many different vans at different times came across a different area. And then they took it to a place and they loaded it all in like one box truck or something, I forget, or one vehicle, literally 5,000 kilos in one area. And they drove it out here, they drove it out. And once it got here, we put like 3 or 4 tractors on it and we waited. Yep. And by then we had 6 locations. But so you had to coordinate with customs. You had to get approval from everybody and their brother. But Ferguson is there. I think it was like Mike Ferguson, not the Mike we know and her son. He's the one who put it all together. Amazing. And so he would meet. So the bad guys called him and said, "Okay, we want our dope." And he said, "Talk about balls." He told him, he said, "No, I'm not. No, you owe me $2 million, and I'm not giving you a dime till you get to." All right. They show up in a Toyota with $2 million in the trunk. So now we could have just went home. Because we got 5,000 kilos and $2 million, we could have just went home. We just fuck it, let's go home. So I had a command post set up in this hotel. So okay, we're going to deliver tomorrow. We moved it. I remember calling customs, and I said, "Dude, we need." I can't think of the guy's name. Terrific guy. And I got to tell you, let me go back because I know we joke a lot. We've all had issues with. I have been so incredibly blessed and fortunate. Working with men and women from different agencies, there's always a rub somewhere. We all got them. I probably pissed guys off as well. But I got to tell you, overall, the people I worked with were all guys and gals were great. And you call them up and say, "Hey, can you help me with this?" There's a guy, Ed Ochitorina. I don't know if Ed's still around, but he was a senior 13 FBI guy. When we were doing that case, I realized I didn't have enough bodies. I called Ed. "Ed, this is what I got." The guy gets 2 teams of FBI agents to come out to help us out. It's unheard of. I mean, figuring out, what do you want them? Nice. This is what we got. So anyway, we got 2 million. We got 5,000 kilos of dope. Now it goes into, I think it was a box truck. So okay, now I'm sitting in the command center, and the bad guy comes, takes control of dope. Now we've given the bad guy, understand this, 5,000 kilos. A bad guy's now driving this box truck, this U-Haul box truck that has a governor on it, so it can't go past 55. He gets out on I-10. He takes off. Behind him is a team of 15 friggin' narcs behind him with a helicopter at 2,000 feet. Behind them is another 15 with a helicopter at 3,000 or 2,500. Behind him is another 15 with a helicopter. 3 helicopters, 30 guys. At the time, 200 guys on the street, close to 300. 6 teams sitting up on 8.
Cow.
So you go from having absolutely no backup and just 2 of you are going to take down stuff with no helicopters, and now you got the whole frickin' 5th fleet and the air
greatest thing in the world, man.
Out.
It was the only problem is I'm in the command center, which I'm not a command center guy, but you got to be, it's all right. Listen, because you're kind of orchestrating stuff, and these guys that are in the field, these sergeants and everything, they've probably forgot more than I know at the time. So it goes to this place. It goes to a house. It backs in. Garage door opens. They're unloading boxes. closes it, truck leaves, there's a team on the house, goes to another location, to another location, to another location. It's just dropping dope off. And I thought I was friggin', Carmack, the Invincible. I go, I'm telling you, he's going to take it to these places. And like when it happened, I was like, I told you. I'm like, oh, please, Lord, let that happen. Make I don't want to screw it.
Yeah.
But now you're thinking, I got 6 freaking locations. First guy that comes out of garage or something, we're going to have to do. But you got to go to the sergeant or the GA or whoever the senior agent at the time says, your decision, whatever you say. So now we're getting into nighttime and it's kind of, and I'm just sitting there. Now I'm starting to think, what the fuck have I done? What the hell is wrong with me? Because I'm thinking, holy shit, we got literally 300 cops out on the street, 6 locations, 5,000 kilos that have now been broken up. I'm like, are you fucking nuts? I get a call from the LAPD sergeant. Oh my God, this guy's such an amazing guy. He calls me up, goes, Jimmy, he goes, listen to me. He goes, my guy is low crawling in a lemon grove. We got eyes on a house. He goes, but in the morning it's going to be a bitch. He goes, I'm telling you right now. I said, listen, brother. I said, you call it. Whatever you think. I'm not telling you whatever you think. Your guys are out there, and that's how you have to be, man. These are
Right.
You can.
Right.
Oh, here's what we're gonna. That's how you have to be. You think you learned about it. He said, okay. Next morning at like 5:30 in the morning, my phone's going off. He goes, hey. He goes, we got movement in the house. I said, okay. Now we are, and by the way, because of good prosecutors, right? Because of relationships again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We got search warrants for every location now. We already got search warrants for every friggin' location. He says, Jimmy, he goes, we got movement. He says, cars coming out. And then the next thing goes, Jimmy, they've made surveillance. He's just like, go ahead, take him. He's throwing phones out. He's throwing phones out the window. I said, okay. They pull him over. They get some dope inside. They grab the bad guy. That's it. We got a warrant for the house. He goes, he calls me. He says, because this is going to be the first place. All the other places are quiet. And buddy, I'll never forget this. I still get, my stomach goes in a knot. He's Jimmy, we're getting ready to hit the place. I said, all right, brother. He says, be careful. Like 5 minutes to 6:03, 6:04, fucking radios blew up. Shots fired, shots fired. Officers down, officers down. I'm like, now you're like, what the fuck? Everything that you feared would happen is happening, but you got to go.
Yeah.
And I remember, I will be honest with you, it'd be nice to go, yes, I was like Patton at the time. Inside, I'm going, what the fuck have I done? For a minute.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell was your ego? You thought you could do for a second. And then what happens is, by then, you got time on, you got to push all that aside, say, okay, what do we got? So what happens is you would find it, and then like 10 minutes later, when they get inside the house, what you had to call out to everybody, and you go, because we had SWAT on standby, we had everybody on standby. In every location, we would find out was all heavy weapons. I mean, heavy weapons, tripods, guns, 308s, magazine. Every place had heavy weapons. And what happened was, I keep forgetting the guy's name, is a sergeant from LAPD, friggin' balls the size of elephants. They go to hit the door. Some of the guys from CNET were with him. Knock on the door. They got a search warrant. 6 o'clock in the morning. Boom, boom, boom. Police open the door. He says, I can hear a guy inside Spanish yelling, we're coming, we're coming. Sorry. Big Dutch doors in the front. Big. And then he said it was like 30 seconds. I mean, my stomach went to flip. He said, I fucked up. Let's hit the door. So they hit the door and they breach it. And the detective who was in the lead steps through to that, the deadly funnel there, steps through.
Mm-hmm.
And their guy was buttoned up behind a wall, 10 feet away, just opened up with the AK-47. Ka-choom, ka-choom, ka-choom. So the detective goes down. Everybody in the front was stacked in the front, is trying to get as low as they can. And this guy is just firing through, just crazy. So the sergeant, Tony Alvarez, that's his name. Tony Alvarez sees this guy go down. So, and he'd been in a couple of friggin' combat shootings before. So he sees the guys literally behind a wall in a tactical position. So Tony's got his friggin' little 9mm. He says to me, he said, I just start friggin' opening up and then I shoot through the wall. And he hits him. He literally hits him and drops the guy. He's alive. The detective was never hit, who went down, but he literally has flash burns on his face from the AK fire. Think about that. So by the grace of God, when the homicide guys got out, anyway, so and one guy did a Miami Vice thing, went crashing through a window out the back. They were able to grab him. They got the dope there. We hit every place. Helicopters from the SWAT teams running out. We got all our dope back. All our dope back. I don't know how many guns, how much money, and all the good guys got to go home that night. I mean, that night.
That was about what I was
Yeah.
about to ask you. Other than the flash burns by that detective's face, who was the point? You know, and that's like you say, that's the worst place to be, is the point going in through that what they call the
Yeah.
fatal funnel. It's that deadly funnel. You go in through an area,
Uh-huh.
and that 30 seconds, basically what you're saying, gave them time
Yeah,
to set up,
yeah,
right?
no, that's the whole thing. And Tony, to his,
So when people wonder why sometimes you ask for no-knock
Yeah.
warrants, it's for exactly
Yeah.
stuff like this. It's because it doesn't take that long for somebody to set up with
No.
a weapon and know that you're coming in through the
and what
front
we would
door.
find out later is, you know, they drugged this guy out. Tony was telling me, because Tony spoke Spanish, and he said, I was talking to the guy. The guy goes, hey, listen, he goes, and the guy had been shot before. He's a former Mexican Fed, and he goes, hey, you did what you had to do. I did what I had to do, basically. And the idea was, if he could wound as many people up front, they were going to be able to get away and get out of
Yeah.
there. But by the grace of God, we got all our dope back, and all the good guys went home, and it was kind of
So
amazing.
just the one bad guy was that. So the guy that your buddy shot was the former Mexican
former
Fed?
Mexican Fed and everything. But, you know, amazingly talented dope cops and agents, and from those are the guys that and gals that make this kind of stuff happen. And they, you know, they
Yep.
could have told you, hey, go pound sand, we're not going to do that. But they come out, they put their lives on the line, and because they trust you. They say, hey, Jimmy, we'll come out. What do you want? You know, and so it's so, you know, so I have sons now that are on the job. I got two of my boys who are federal agents in two different agencies, and he's telling them all the time, let me tell you something. You would be dumb if, as you get settled and as you learn a job, not to connect with the men and women in the police departments around there. So never forget, it's their city, their towns, and connect with them, man. Connect with them. You'll be lifelong friends.
Absolutely.
And they want the same thing. They want, you know, they want to put bad guys in jail and take dope off their streets. And, you know, I've always been in some, whether it's ad hoc task force or something else, and it's always proven to be great. Not to take anything away from DEA, but
No,
Right.
but let me tell you, as a recipient of that, as a detective, when we were working stuff with our local DEA task force, they'd bring guys in. I don't know if you know the name Troy Derby at all.
Troy worked for me. He was my executive
No,
assistant for a while.
he was
Yeah,
your
it was
horse
my horse. I
holder.
love him. And then Troy, we lived in the same complex out in Virginia. And I can do a lot of things at home, but there's some shit I just can't do. But Troy is like a master carpenter. So I used to have him over my house. Hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that?
So Troy was such a good guy. He was out of Wichita
Yeah.
at the time, out of the what you might call, was it the resident
Yeah,
agency or
yeah.
the and let me tell you what, we were blessed because we had good relationships with all the feds. With ATF would come out. We used to have a 2-man RA, then it was a 1-man RA for the FBI. But every one of those guys was good people. We had, back in the day when it was still INS, we had a 2-man RA for INS. You know, they later eliminated it. But Troy would come out, and we were working some good-sized cases, good-sized seizures. And he would come out, and we figured out the rules, because DEA could not give us NATIS reports, which is, I think, was the Narcotics and
Yeah.
Dangerous Drugs Information System. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could not give us the report, but what he could do is he could lay it on the table and said, copy what you want. So it then became our information, and we would share information back with him.
Defense attorneys could have those, but we couldn't give them to our partners. Amazing.
What
It makes
amazing.
no sense.
But here's the best part, though, is that, you know, when we were working this stuff, we'd share information back and forth. We never had an issue with these guys, because nobody was running to make a press release. Nobody was saying, hey, it was us. We had great working relationships. But to your point, though, too, we knew the people. We knew the relationships. They might have a name, but we knew the relationship between that name and businesses in town and everything else. And so we'd bring the guys with the resources. And let me tell you, one of the best things I got to do and be a part of, we're doing a flasher. You know, I got to be my one UC role one time, like you. I sucked at undercover. I was the banker. We go to a bank. We've got $500,000 in cash, you know, in a safe deposit box. I got to be the guy that got to go open it up, and it was all money, you know, from seizures, courtesy of DEA. And it was like this. I'm going, this is fun.
Well,
man.
you know what? So when I go from Los Angeles, having that kind of relationships with people, you know, men and women across police departments and across agencies, I get to Newark, New Jersey as a supervisor. Never forget it. Good, hardworking group of individuals. And I'm not there for a couple of days. So I grab a couple guys and say, hey, who do we work with? And they look at me like I have three heads. What are you talking about? Well, who do we work with? State police? Who's our contacts? Never forget. This guy looks at me, he goes, we don't work with anybody. So what are you talking about? He goes, I said, what do you mean we don't work with anybody? He goes, nobody likes us. I go, the frick? What do you mean nobody likes us? No, nobody. They hate us. They hate DEA.
They haven't met Jimmy Capra yet. I'm Captain America.
What we found out is there was a, especially state police, which is a great, Massachusetts, Jersey State Police, amazing group of guys and gals, interdiction, narcotics guys and stuff. And later on and down the road, I wind up meeting who would become the colonel out there. I forget it. He's got his PhD through City University of New York from all DEA cases. It was amazing because I got to read his dissertation. But what we would find out is some of the guys on the state police who are now lieutenants and captains didn't want anything to do with DEA because of a pissing match they had 15 years earlier. And I'm like,
Yeah.
didn't anybody call and say, hey, look, we're sorry about that, but can we move beyond that? So we finally did start working with, men and women. But what I'm getting to is you ruin a relationship like that, you wind up impacting everything you're doing. And it may be juvenile. That's kind of juvenile saying guys or gal is holding that over you. But that's the importance of it. And I'm not saying get run over or kissing anybody's butt, but there's a bigger picture at hand. There is. And there is a time to tell somebody,
Absolutely.
and I'm sorry, I'm not working with you. There is a time to do that. But
Yeah.
a lot of stuff was like from petty stuff,
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, it got to the point a lot of offices you work out of, you'd rather work with the state and local guys than you do the feds.
Man, yeah. No, that's true.
Yeah, the state and local guys, they'll come out any time of the day or night, Saturday, Sunday, it doesn't matter. Where the feds are like, it's a weekend.
Actually, there was a division like that would always, they weren't even in the chain of where dope was going to, but for some reason we get a call, yeah, we think we got this dope's going to come here. I go, it's not coming here. Well, my ASAC's telling me to come down and we're going to do A, B, and C. I'm like, you freaking kidding me? Get the hell out of here. But it is what it is. Everybody's got a piece of it. But again, when I look back, I go, I got nothing but good memories, and by the grace of God.
Yeah, but you bring up the whole problem, and I think it's less of an issue now because we've gotten better at sharing information, especially after 9/11, where we realized we got to do a better job of sharing information all over the place. But I tell you, I remember this one cartoon, and it came out of Doonesbury, but it tells you. It was about the Middle East, but I looked at it and said, it's kind of like law enforcement too, just exactly what you're talking about. You got Duke, the CIA guy there, and he's talking to Ahmed or, the character, and he says, hey, how come you hate this guy? How come you want to kill him? He said, well, because 2,000 years ago, his cousin killed my cousin.
Yeah.
And we're still harboring
these. Yeah, it's petty. That may not be petty, but it is petty. But it's kind of almost like generational shit.
Fortunately, that's a small thing. And what happens is these guys age out. They get moved somewhere else, and pretty soon, you've got a new crop of people that come in that, like you. One of the best things probably to happen in LA is to have 70% of all the people out there be new agents who don't have that baggage, who don't know what it's like, and want to make cases.
It's funny you say, because when I often say that, I think that our what most people would consider our success in LA as a whole, not just our group, but other groups who are working dynamic, great stuff from money laundering and everything. I think you're right. The guy's like, okay, we can do that. Hey, let's talk to so and so, or hey, or somebody would say, hey, do you have somebody from Riverside PD, or do you know somebody from B&E or something like that? Yeah, call this guy. He's a great guy, or she's a good. And it's just the way you should be getting things done. It's not perfect,
right?
But by God, man, at the end of the day, you go, what the hell are we doing? Why are we fighting?
And we're all on the same team.
I will tell you this:
fighting the bad guys.
One of the things that I learned in Silmar with that money, seizure money makes the best of friends and the worst of enemies. So let me give you a quick snapshot of what I mean. And it does, because every department has politics. Everybody. So here we got close to, 13 million in cash, and we're going to divvy it up. And so now, and of course, you remember, you're the guy. All the DAGs come into you, and but I've already talked to all the PDs and got their chiefs to say, here's what we're going to put in for. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I got to be honest with you, back then, I had a supervisor say, you take care of it. It's okay. So like we're talking about, one of the, people ask all the time, well, how is it that you're so successful? Not just me, is this. I said, you know, I know and I believe that the reason that my team, my group, and to be honest with you, in my walk as an agent or as a leader was the ability to establish relationships, the ability, you know, to say, listen, maybe I don't agree with you on a lot of different things, your politics, your social life. I don't care. But this is important that I'm able to establish these relationships of trust so that we can get things done. And that's what it's about. And I think the bigger issue is, I think sometimes we forget that men and women, especially in our profession, you know, in the law enforcement profession, it doesn't matter, is that everybody's trying to do the same thing. You know, we're trying to complete the mission. And how, you know, how do you do that? You know, recognize that I don't have all the tools. You know, it's like going back to the tractor trailer stuff. And you look at commercial vehicles and you realize, hey, who do we go to? How do we get that tool there? And then that's, you know, it becomes important. And then you yield that, you know, and it's kind of like the controlled delivery I talked about. You tell these men and women that are with you, who are going into harm's way, right? All of us think it's going to be great, but you have to give them that. You got to say, you make that decision as you see it for your team. You don't go, okay, you come to me that's how shit slows down. You know what? Like I said, my buddy Bill Huffman during the big cases, what do you want us to do? It's Bill, you call it, you know, or the guy at the house, you know, said, Jimmy, what do you want me to do? Is you call it, man. You call it as you see it. I'll follow your lead. I'm not there. And then the other thing is, you know, when we're sharing stuff, we're honest with people. We're not going to say, well, I can only give you so much. You know, as I was telling my boys who were in different outfits, I said, well, if you're going to share something with somebody, you share it. You know, we have a mechanism by which we tell people we share it, our agency. You share it. You don't give them, you know, 1% or 2%. Here's what I got. This is what I got. So you got to be willing to do that.
I was going to say, I think one of the funniest jokes I ever heard Dennis Miller talk about, and he had a conversion after 9/11, you know, the comedian.
Yeah.
He said there are no Al-Qaedas, you know. He said, you know, but he used to joke, and it was true, because when you've worked inside these environments, and you know it too, Jimmy, you're in a skiff or you got other people. He said the only thing the CIA and the FBI share is the letter I in their name.
Yeah,
And there was a time where that was the truth, right? But you're sitting there next to somebody go, hey, why don't I just turn around and tell this guy, oh, no, you have to go through this cutout, and it has to go through legal, and it has to come here.
Yeah.
So by the time you share information that can make a difference, it's a 3 or 4 day journey to where you go, why can't I just turn to the guy and say, hey, you need to know this?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. You know, let me give an example. When I got to Dallas here, run the Dallas office, I've really, really blessed the men and women that I worked with, not only the supervisors, but the team that I work with, like just kind of Danny Salter and Jeff Stum and others, Tanya Pierce, who was our legal after a while. But so one of the big things that I would tell people all the time is you pursue an excellence, not success. You know, you can cheat and succeed, but pursuing excellence means you got to be willing to reach up to the next level. Don't be content. And I don't mean, when I tell that, I don't mean not to be content with your life, with, you know, your family, with it. I mean, don't be, hey, can I get better? Is there a way to get better? And how do I get better? And, you know, that. So my big thing was pushing it down to our people. You're going to make decisions on the street that impact you. Not every decision you make, not every situation has an answer in the manual. And so one of the teams, was doing a controlled delivery coming up. And it's funny because they said, hey, they're bringing up 800 pounds of weed. It's coming up here. I went, great. Yeah, go for it, man. So the kid who had it, he said, I got, you know, he did all the pre-planning and everything. I didn't have to get involved in this. Is, you know, so he did it. They did the controlled delivery. And unfortunately, there was another way out, and they lost like 100 pounds or something of weed out of the 900-pound load. And so I got a phone call. So, all right, no big deal. And so we would find out, go downstairs, and it was Danny Salters, one of his guys, came into me and said, oh my God, this guy feels terrible and everything. I said, what do you mean feels terrible? So he makes this decision because he sees this offload. So there's an informant and an undercover involved. And next thing you know, 5 cars shows up. And now the supervisor's saying, if we hit it, these guys are going to be in mortal danger. Let's be smart. Let's let them load it, and then we'll go after them. And unfortunately, one of the cars got out. So I went down and talked to the kid, and he goes, boss, I'm so sorry. I go, whoa, wait a minute. You made a decision, right? Yeah. You made a decision based on the safety and the security of your team, your men and women, the informant and the other guy, right? You made the right decision. I said, where do you think that dope's going to go? You think it's going to go to the local school? It's going to some other asshole doper's house. Don't worry about it. I said, what are you kidding me?
I
You know,
bet you didn't tell your team either. Only cowards wear vests, right?
no, I never, I didn't say that either. But what I'm getting to is, you know, we want and expect our men and women who are responsible for others to make decisions on the street, and you don't want them to be afraid to make decisions, you know, based on, oh, the boss may not like you. Got based on your training, your experience, the wisdom, and the situation at hand. All those things go, you know, kind of go into it.
Well, and you hit upon it. It's the facts on the ground. The thing that used to irritate me to no end is you'd have some, what we call a REMF, a rear echelon motherfucker, sitting in a desk, in a chair somewhere, not anywhere near a scene or anything else that's going on. And they think they've got the wisdom and the insight to tell you what to
Yeah.
do. It's this whole fallacy people had, you know, with radios. It's like you got some commander sitting there going, well, the reason these radios have to work like this and they got to be this because we have to be able to give shoot, don't shoot orders. And I said, I guarantee you, if you ever worked with the SWAT team or snipers, they're not waiting for some asshole on a radio,
Yeah.
you know, 5 miles away to tell them shoot or don't shoot. I mean, you hit upon, I think, one of the key leadership things is if you've trained the people right, you've instilled the confidence in them, then you go with their decisions based on
Yeah.
the facts on the ground.
You know, you give them the authority to say, okay, do it. Now, you know, if somebody screws the pooch, and it's completely, there's accountability and everything. But, you know, it's kind of reminiscent of, people probably don't remember this, when General Schwarzkopf was in charge of the first Gulf War and everything. He was asking all his intel people, which I would have been one of if I wasn't, and they kept giving him information that was all wrong. And he basically said, "This is bullshit." So he talked to his guys on the, you know, down the ground up front, and he was able to assess a better battle plan that way.
Hmm.
So, like you said, Morgan, he didn't talk to, here's all these wizards that are putting stuff together. He's going, hey, what does your eyes and ears tell you on the ground? What are you seeing? And so sometimes what I learned as I'm coming up is, yeah, we give, you know, bosses or leaders give these men and women this authority. And then as soon as something doesn't sound right, they want to cut their heads off. So wait a minute, man. Well, hang on a second. That's bullshit.
That was, you know, one of my first supervisors in DEA. He made a point of telling all us new guys, because there's so many new guys in the group, if you guys are right, I got your backs.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm right, I don't need you to have my back.
Yeah.
I need your support when I'm wrong.
Yeah, we had a supervisor before I got to Newark. One of the guys would tell me their former supervisor that was there a few years earlier said, none of you are going to get in the way of my promotions and stuff. And I always found that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that bothers me so much. You know, in positions and leaders, and I'm not speaking for all of DEA. I was fortunate, as you were, Murph, to work with some phenomenal men and women. But you start realizing, man, we need men and women with some wisdom and some people who care, and you know, and that's, you start getting that into your bones, and you start realizing, you know, when you're developing these relationships, it garners so much. You get so far ahead, and then you got men and women calling you back because maybe they're not the dope experts, but they got, you know, maybe the bureau's got something, and they call you up and say, hey, we got a dope connection, maybe ABC. And it doesn't happen all the time, but maybe that's it. And that's not the sole reason is, hey, I want people to call me and make cases. You also want to have relationships with people, you know, that, you know, that's part, which ultimately kind of, I think that's what kind of laid the groundwork for me starting to write and talking about, you know, leadership when I was on on DEA, on active.
Well,
so I started kind of looking at that.
Let's talk about that, because you went from being the chief of domestic operations. I mean, 200 domestic offices, 65 foreign countries. I mean, you had a lot on your plate, and you learned a lot during that time. How did that experience lead you into what you're doing now? Because we want to talk about now, you know, what is Jimmy Capra up to now? But, you know, what I want to do is, we passed something, but I want to tell people how personal some of this was for you. And it was about your dad. I mean, you told us a really good story. I don't know if you want to share that, but I mean, your dad was an original victim in a different sense of some of the drugs that he was on because of his back.
Yeah. I say all the time, I think I said it earlier, you know, there's two, when people are asked, who are your heroes and stuff. And I always say, I had two heroes while growing up. One was my father, and the other one was my oldest brother, who could do, to me, he could do anything. My oldest brother could do anything. He and I enlisted in the military 9 months apart, and he went in the Air Force. I went here. Next thing you know, got commissioned. He was running the Air Force's ICBM program, and Amazing guy. So, which is still around. So we're really close. And, so my dad, when he got hurt, he broke his back and neck on the job. They told him he'd never walk again. They told him, he just had to go out on, back then it was 3/4 disability and it was tax free. So he was like, woohoo. And I think it was like 7 kids he had. We lived in Queens and he was getting like 6,000 or 7,000 a year. That's what his retirement was. And, but he was in so much pain because they fused his spine from his tailbone almost all the way up to the middle of his back. And back then there wasn't the microsurgery that we had in the last 25, 30 years where they pull a disc. His tailbone was completely obliterated. He had 3 crushed discs that they fused. He had a hairline fracture in his neck that they didn't know that he had broke on the original because he literally, when he had the accident, he was out for 2 or 3 weeks and then went back on motors. And he said, I kept having pain when I threw my leg over the bike, and it was the old Harley Davidson 1200 kickstarts.
Mm-hmm.
So he finally went to the police sergeant. He says, let's take some pictures. And they went, holy shit, you should be standing. Long and short, but he went through the operation. And they started him on a wonder drug back then called Darvon Compound 65. And I always put it this way, and I could be wrong, but I think it was akin to what people said OxyContin was first like. You're going to be able to function, because there's nothing worse than chronic pain. There just isn't. Watch people having family members deal with it. It's a miserable, way of life. And so they start him on this, Darvon Compound 64. And we got used to, as we're growing up, I thought, go get me my pills. And never thought twice about it. It's just the way it is. My dad wasn't abusive. He wasn't a mean guy. He didn't beat anybody up. But by the time I became a corpsman, a medic, and here I got the physician's desk reference, and I said, I'm going to look this stuff up. And realize this is supposed to be taking 2 pills every 4 to 6 hours. My dad's taking like 6 pills every 2 hours. He's got his doctor is prescribing him anywhere from 500 to 1,000 pills a month. And I'm like, I call him up, never forget, I said, Dad, this stuff is no good. It's got a lot of aspirin in it. There's a toxic effect here and there. And of course, Dad says, oh, what are you, a freaking doctor now?
Yeah.
So, and that's really that's why we lost him so young, it just had a toxic effect on his kidneys. And his kidneys started failing on my first year in college. And then they were able to get him to a doctor outside of the local doctor that he was at. And they diagnosed him and prognosed him, said, hey, look, your dad's addicted to this. We got to get him on something else. He has pain. So they got him on another injectable that they said this is going to be a lot more. But so he lived for I think he died my first year, the second year on the job. When he wound up, the problem was it was too late and it killed his kidneys and it ultimately got to his liver. And then he got sent to the hospital and they kind of gave him a little Valium to ease some stuff up. And he kind of went into a semi-coma and then died in his sleep. But and this is way before the opioid stuff or anything else. But I tell people that just because I said, hey, listen, this stuff's been around for a while. And I'm sure, the doctors didn't mean to, they were trying to help this guy out and stuff. But this is, this is just the way it was. And it's funny, I think I told a story the other day, Morgan, when I was speaking at the National Drug Courts Association some years ago. And this is the first time I ever talked about my dad and his addiction to these pills when I realized it. And afterwards, some gal came up to the dais when I was sitting up there, and she said, Mr. Capra, I'd like to talk to you. I said, yeah, sure. What do you want to know about DEA? What do you want to? She said, I'd really like to know, sit and talk to you what it was like growing up in a dysfunctional family. And I was like, what? She said, I want to talk to you about what it was like to grow up in a dysfunctional family. And I looked at this lady, and I said, oh, honey, and I probably shouldn't have said that, but I said, this is before everything was offensive. I said, honey, my family put the fun in dysfunction. And she was so annoyed. You could see it in her face and walked away. Like, listen, man, it just was, so.
Well, that's what you want to say. Get over yourself there, sweetie.
Yeah, man. And I'm sure they assumed that maybe, but I tell people this day, listen, my dad had a 10th grade education, one of the smartest guys I've ever met. I got more wisdom and knowledge from him without him saying fancy words or anything. He had a high expectation for his children. I'm sure he would be very proud if he was alive today or 20 years ago. Somebody asked me not long ago. I was doing something, said, if you could talk to anybody, gone or present, who would you talk to? I said, I'd love, someday I will be able to talk to him because my dad had a strong faith. And I said, I'd love to be able to sit with my dad and laugh and talk and, and just hear him. But good man. He's a good man.
What do you think?
I got to tell you one quick story about Jimmy here. And this is, I was an assistant special agent charged at SOD, and you were chief of ops back then, and we'd all been called down to headquarters. We were in that first floor meeting room down there, just past the entrance to headquarters, and we're all waiting, and we're waiting for the administrator. And I'm not going to mention her name at this time, but you can figure it out. And finally, I went over to Derek or whoever it was. I'm like, what the hell are we waiting on? We're wasting everybody's time here. And he said, well, we're waiting on the administrator and the chief ops to show up. And I said, oh, I mean, they know we're here, right? I'm just being facetious. And he's like, yeah. He said, Jimmy's up there probably getting his ass chewed out for something. And and so I'm just, then you go back to talking to everybody, and finally you guys come walking in, and you came in with the biggest smile on your face. You addressed the entire group there, and that room was packed. That's probably the most people I've ever seen in that room. And I'm thinking, this guy just took a butt chewing from an administrator that I've seen give butt chewings personally. And let me tell you, you could look up the term butt chewing in the dictionary, and it would probably have that picture in there of her giving one. And you were the most professional, like nothing in the world bothered you. You set the example for everybody else to follow. And I thought, you know what? That's a freaking leader. That's who we need in the administrator's position. And I haven't, all these years later, I haven't forgotten that, man. You set an example for others to follow, and that's why you're a leader.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have been on Darvon. I don't know.
Hey, Jimmy, let me ask you.
Maybe you were.
Let me ask you a question. The reason I asked that is that you're 2 years onto the job. Your dad passed away right before, like you said, you got that big seizure, the biggest thing, because you didn't know any better except to ask for help, work with people. If your dad had been alive, what do you think he would have said, once the details were heard? Not so much about the case, but about you and about the way you worked and the things you did, the way you worked it.
You know what? I can tell you, he was, that's what he expected. Expect you to work like that. No, you know what I mean? I think I really do. My dad wasn't a big, hey, you're, like the Little League dag or something. There was just, he had high expectations and let you know what they were.
Mm-hmm.
He just, this is, and like, I wrote about it. So it wasn't about moral superiority. It was about your character, your faith, your work ethic. Those things were important, and to get through life. And I used to say all the time, the only thing you have is, if you're lucky, you'll have one, maybe two real close friends in life. And I know what he means by that. We joke and say, the guy that you can call and say, I got to bury a dead body, and he doesn't ask any questions. But he says, but he said, your family, he said, and your reputation. And it's your reputation that always goes in front of you. And not to be fearful that somebody's not going to like me, is that the kind of man that you want to be. And someday you'll stand before God and you'll go, hey, am I the, and I always say, I'll be standing for him saying, I'm sorry, I'm still not who I should be, but I'm better than who I was. So yeah, I think he would say, you've met my, the expectations and stuff, because, I don't have, and we're fortunate, our family, because we, and maybe just a law enforcement, the gallows humor, but we don't have the daddy issues. And my dad would have been, he got to see me get my badge, and he was so sick. I mean, he was really, really very, very sick, but he came down to Quantico and watched me, get my badge. And if I knew any better back then, he would have been able to present it, but I didn't think that. But terrific guy. Learned a lot from him. But my brother Tony would always say, he goes, what is it with you? He goes, why did you get the pearls from Dad? I go, I was stupid enough to ask him questions all the time. Hey, I wrote in one of the books, I said, I remember asking my dad, I said, how'd you know that Mom was the right one? I mean, my dad is like first generation Italian guy. He was like Pharaoh. I didn't talk back to my dad till my second year in the Navy. And when I did, I was petrified. I thought he was going to hit me with the 2x4. Yeah. But I remember, I don't know why. I just say, hey, Dad, how did you know? I mean, how did you know? And this is his answer. He goes, you know that you know that you know. And I went, all right,
that is a typical New York answer.
He said, so listen to this. This is real quick. I don't mean to go off, but I'm going to share this with you. So I meet my wife. I immediately am freaking head over heels. And I start dating her. And every time because I was going to college about 35, 40 miles from the house in the reserves, just got out of the service, And so my father, one day, I'm at home, I'm helping him cook dinner or something. And he goes, what's with this girl? I said, what do you mean, Pop? He goes, what's with this girl, talking about her, this, that, and the other thing. I said, Pop, I said, I love her. I said, I'm crazy about her. I said, I'm going to marry this girl. He goes, you're going to marry her, huh? How do you know you're going to marry? I look at him and go, hey, Papa, you remember when I was a kid? And I said, how'd you know Mom was? And he's sitting there with a half-assed, crooked, no jokester, a serious guy. He said, yeah. He just nods his head. I go, Papa, I said, I know that I know that I know. He goes, all right. He goes back to cooking. All right. That was it. And I had to ask him to co-sign a loan for like $1,100 so I can get a ring for her, which he did. But, it's part of who people say, what is it? What makes you up? A lot has to do with, and not, listen, I get it, man. Not everybody, if I tell my life to somebody, which I did in one of my books, is somebody might say, wow, geez, it wasn't the greatest. It was great. When I look back at my life and my upbringing and everything else, it wasn't TV life, but my father, kind of prepared us for our battle in our culture and our world. And so, as did my mom. I don't want to, but we're talking about a guy who was a cop who loved his job. And then, one of the first things when I started talking about leadership, I said, he's the one he would talk to. So when he would talk about these stories on the street, they weren't ever about, I arrested a guy, I had a shootout or something. He would talk, because he worked a beat in Midtown, and he would talk about people just eking out an existence. And I will never forget the story with people. He says, I knew everybody. I knew the shop owners. I knew the hypes. I knew the prostitutes. I knew everybody. And they all knew me. But the story that got me, and think of this from a leadership position all the time, is my dad was telling us one time, this is when I understood that he cared about people, that he liked people. And when I mean like people, he's not a wuss. This is a guy that I'm sure had his handful of punching people in the face on the beat. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't mean that to be macho. I mean, there was a time in this country, cops were revered,
Right.
And he was there in the 50s and early 60s. And so he said he was telling about, we had to, even back then, had to round up the prostitutes on the street. And he looks over at me, he goes, you know what? No matter why they did what they did, they sold their bodies for money. He goes, they were women. They should always be treated like women. And he would look and say, you always treat people with dignity and respect. That's from a guy, 10th grade education, Korean combat guy, But I just looked at it and said, okay, but it took me years later to realize he cared about people. He might have been, I'm sure he was a tough cop. I'm sure he was an asshole to people from time to time, but you realize he cared about, and he knew people. He knew they were eking out an existence. He knew stuff like that. And it makes kind of an impact on you.
Well, he's setting an example for all of his children to follow.
Yeah, like I said, like when my brother Tony would always break my stones and said, I don't remember those things. I said, dude, you left the house at 16. What the hell? So,
you were never around.
Yeah. So, but those kinds of things, Morgan, you were, asking me. So
I want to know, you take all of those lessons, right? Because that's the reason I kind of teed it up this way, is that you learned so much from your dad when you were young. You lost him, when you were young. But yet you still go on to do this, because what I'm very interested in now, and I want you to talk about too, is you distilled all of this stuff down into leadership. I mean, you speak a lot on leadership. You've got a site, and it's called frontlineleadershipgroup.com.
Right.
In fact, I have it up here right now with your smiley face, your bald head. You're working out, you ripping your shoulders out, Captain America. Captain America, I don't remember him being, a little chunky like that, with the big shoulders. He was more, but anyway, but you look good in that suit, but you teach a lot on stuff. We're also going to talk about your books real quick too, because you sent me covers for the books that you wrote, but what prompted you to say, once you left DEA, to say, this is my path now, this is what I want to do, I want to teach about these things that I learned growing up and on the job?
So one of, I think probably when I became an executive assistant, a horse holder, it's funny, I started talking to some of the younger guys who wanted to promote and stuff, and I would find myself from time to time just asking guys, why do you want to promote? Of course, they'd look at you and go, oh, God, is this a test? They go, no, what do you want to promote for? What do you want to do? it's nice to want to make some money and everything, but remember, you have an impact on people's lives. That kind of morphed into, I got promoted to the chief of domestic operations, and I started talking more and more. Then they started inviting me down to the GSIs, and I would talk a little bit about domestic operations.
GSIs
are Group Supervisor Institute. I'm sorry. And so this is where when the supervisor was being promoted, they used to have a 30-day or longer course, which was great. They don't do it anymore, I don't think because of money, but so they'd asked me to go down and talk to these men and women who were promoted, talk about domestic operations and DEA. And literally I would do that for about 15 minutes. And then I talked about the importance of being a leader. And I would just do it it's just my own thing. And just the importance of caring about people and taking care of men and women, what that means and all this other stuff. That morphed into then being asked to go down to training to talk to, the task force officers that came in and then it got, more and more. And I would write things down. So if I said, hey, geez, I just listened to this guy, Morgan Wright, speak, and I would go and I would write stuff down that I liked or I heard about it. And it just it got a life of its own by the time it became the chief of operations, when they would have division, what the hell was it? Division conferences and stuff. I got asked to go down and talk about the state of DEA. And then I'd always morph it into how important that those kinds of things were. And I really kind of enjoyed, and I knew what I was telling people was important. So here I am, military background, over 25 years of DEA, and you're telling men and women, you got to learn how to love men and women on your job. And what does that mean? And how does that look? What is that supposed to look like? And so when I was chief of ops, long story, but when I was the chief of ops, I was commuting every 4 to 6 weeks to go home. Shelly and the kids were here. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I remember coming home, I was getting ready to drive up. Jeff Sweeten's son was getting married. He was a Marine getting married. So on the way up.
When you said they were here, where are you at the time? Are you
I'm
back
in North Texas. No.
North Texas?
We've been in North Texas for 16 years. But so we're driving up to go to Sweeten's place, and I start talking to my wife about, I got to get ready to go. I'm thinking about going, this, that, and the other thing. And my wife looks at me, she goes, you always said you want to write a book. She goes, why don't you use the time while you're up there, Bryce? Because I was going crazy. Because my wife and I are together for 40 years, right? And I like, not only I love her, but I like her. And the older I get, I'm not good without her. And I know that sounds corny. I'm not looking for, to be a guy that writes cards or anything. But I know me. I know the guy that looks back at me in the mirror, and I know how weak I am when it comes to not being around my wife. And I'm okay with that the older I get. And so I said, it's just driving me crazy. And she said, you've always wanted to write a book. Why don't you, on the time you can, start writing? So I said, okay. And she said, why don't you have a manuscript done? And this was October. She said, why don't you have a manuscript done this is October. So I'm thinking she really thinks highly of me. Why don't you have a manuscript done by Christmas? And I'm like, are you effing mine? I don't know how to write a book. She said, I'll tell you what. She goes, write it by my birthday in February. My birthday's February 9th. So I basically said, okay. So I'm back to work, and during the regular work days, pain in the ass from morning till night and everything.
Oh, yeah.
But on the weekends, if I wasn't going down to my brother's house to help him out, because he lived down in Fredericksburg, I would go to the office, go on the personal computer. I had, over the course of my career, like 23 pages of one-liners. And I don't even know where to start, because I'm a left to right guy. And then I just started writing. My walk with DEA and the things that I learned and mistakes that you make, and stories. They were true stories about things that I think I believed were important, about leadership lessons and about legacy, and about, you start talking about loving people. And it's weird because, that by the time I retired, so the day I officially retired, the book came out on leadership at the front line. And it's not, oh, you're going to learn everything. I'm going to give you the keys to to the leadership kingdom. It's just my walk and things that I learned and mistakes that I make, and the honesty about, caring about people. And even when you do, people still will disappoint you. So you got to recover from that and stuff. But how you deal with people impacts morale and impacts productivity and all that stuff. It's not about, and the problem, the reality is, and it would be any agency. I've seen some really great leaders in DEA, and I've seen some really shitty ones. And some of the shitty ones, when they promoted, they thought they were taller, smarter, and better looking than everybody else. I literally had an executive tell me when I got promoted, I got kind of promoted early, not kind of, I did. Asa Hutchinson saw something in me, and he promoted me to the senior executive service. And this executive walked up to me. I never forget. He says, "I don't talk to anybody, two low levels lower than me." And I looked at this guy. I don't want to take a freaking baseball bat to his head. I said, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
And he walked in that kind of arrogance too. I said, "Oh my God!" And I'm thinking to myself, "What kind of relationship do you have with your crew, with your team?" So that's kind of what started it all, brother. And I always do the weird things. No matter when I was on a job, I never done what, people say, "Hey, you got to do this." When I was going to headquarters, they said, "You got to go to OPR. The only way you're going to get promoted, you got to go to OPR." I don't want to go to OPR. I want to go to a place called Congressional Affairs. That looks pretty cool. You're never going to get anywhere if you go to Congressional Affairs. Don't do it.
Well, and OPR is
officer. It's like internal affairs, office of professional responsibilities. I don't want to do that. I want to go.
See, yeah. When Murph said you're going to Congressional Affairs, I said that's like making a kilo case down in Miami. Everybody's having affairs in Congress. I mean, that's different. Different? Is it different?
But it was great, man. It was. It yes. Kind of was off. But you do get to see how the sausage is made in our political system, and it's ugly. So.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, that's what it's also. So when I was getting ready to get out, I will never forget. I made up my mind. I went home on leave. I talked to our financial guy, but I was ready to go. I can hear Joe Keefe in the back of my head. "You're going to know when it's ready. You're going to know. You're going to know." And so my wife and I talk. I said, "I'm going to pull the pin." She's, "Okay, when are you going to do it?" I said, "I don't know." She goes, "If you don't set a date, you're not going to do it." So I said, "Okay. What if I do it in like 3 weeks? 3 weeks?" So I go back to I go back to DC. By then, when I'm getting ready to retire, I had a full manuscript done. I had a company that I had online that was kind of a self-publishing company done. And I'll never forget, it was a Monday morning. I flew in. Derek calls me. He said, "Hey bro, what's up?" I said, "What's going on?" Derek goes, I'm going to retire." I go, "Well, I'm going to retire too." He goes, "When you retired?" I said, 2 weeks after IDEC. He goes, "Oh shit, man." He goes, "I'm going today to talk to her." So, I walked into Tommy's office and I said, "Hey, I'm going." He goes, "What do you got? What do you got?" I said, "I don't have anything." I said, "I'm going to start my own little business." And listen, I work for the government since I'm 18 years old. This is what I know, between the military and DEA. Right. I know nothing about business. I know nothing about.
And when you said Tommy, you're talking about Tommy.
Yeah, Tom Harrigan was the deputy administrator. Tom and I were both supervisors in Newark. And I said, I got an idea. I got a little business I want to start, and I think I'll be able to make something of it. And then I went in and talked to Michelle, and I said, "Hey, I'm pulling the pin in a couple of weeks." IDEC was the following week. I said, "So if you don't want me to go to IDEC, I get it."
But so IDEC is the
International Drug Enforcement Conference in Rome, of all places. It was
Roma.
So anyway, I pulled the pin. I got home, and for the next year, I wrote, and we put together this little leadership company. And you're in what I didn't realize. Well, I did that. The leadership arena, especially speaking, is so filled with everybody and their brother. I mean, from 23-year-olds to guys who are real serious guys who've been through the mill and back. A lot of them are. This is going to sound cheap. A lot of them are bullshit artists. I had a 24-year-old kid from UNT graduated, literally called me or got hold of me through social media and said, "Hey, I'd love to help you understand what mentoring is all about." I'm like, "What? Who are you?" He just graduated from UNT, but he has the balls to get a hold of me and got to tell you how important mentoring is about, and then you got to go through guys that sending you emails saying, "I'll teach you how to have a $1 million speaking business." It's all bullshit.
Oh yeah.
So
yes.
You get
so many of those.
and then I had to figure out what my value, your value and your worth is, and then you have to realize one of the other things you realize. And I love speaking. I mean, I probably should have went into acting because I really enjoy speaking and stuff. But when you as a warrior to public servant, talk to other people about loving people, it can set people back. I remember talking to a CEO when I was telling him what the bottom line was, is taking care of people, is you don't understand business. And right away, he was like, what do you know? So what do I know? Okay. So I got an $800 million budget. So go ahead, tell me what I don't know. He said, bottom line is this, and the bottom line is that. And I looked at him and said, listen, man, I get that you're CEO and everything, but your bottom line is your men and women. And if you lead them well, no matter what goal you have, no matter your profit margin, they'll get you there if you take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because he wants to ride them rough and everything. So not everybody gets it. Not everybody kind of agrees. And that's okay. I don't, I tell them I kind of stepped out of the boat and just said, this is what I'm, going to do. I had one guy tell me, you're not going to be able to compete. What do you have to offer? Literally, a guy used to be a UNT professor. F you. I'm going to keep going. So by
What's UNT? Where's
University
UNT?
of North Texas. So by now, in my plan, I'm supposed to be a millionaire speaking to 20,000 people at a time, but that didn't happen, which is good.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on that too.
But here's
if you remember, Jimmy, you and I had a lot of conversations about
man.
this.
So, but you know what? Here's the cool thing. So we were plugging along, got the book going, and like I said, if anybody when I was growing up said, hey, that guy writes, writes books, they would say, not that guy, he was a friggin' moron. But so into the following year, my wife says, I used to tell the story to my kids, that's the eagle and the seagulls. She goes, you should really write that. And it's kind of using the eagle as a metaphor about your calling in life and how do you face storms and everything. So I did that one, which was fun to do. My brother-in-law, who's pastors a church in Western New York, actually used it to talk to his men's group about, because it's called a wisdom story for children and adults. And really it's about when you're faced with storms in your life, what do you do? So we're going ahead and, we got a couple of gigs and things are starting to happen and I'm enjoying stuff and I continue to write. My middle son comes up to me and says, and now he's a cop. He was a cop here in Texas in one of the police departments. Very great department. His chief is a wonderful friend of mine. I'll never forget, he comes up to me and goes, Dad, he said, can I talk to you? Yeah. He goes, what's wrong with my generation? Now, all of my children in their age range would probably be considered millennials. I have them from 36 to 25, I guess, is what the age range. And so I kind of stopped and I said, Mark, I said, well, he goes, what's wrong with him? And he was a hard charging, cop and stuff. And he's had his own walk. And we kind of sat down and started talking. I said, Mark, I've always had high expectations of you guys. We didn't babe you guys. I said, I probably was a little bit too hard on you at times. But all you guys in the world's eyes, at least, they look at you and they think, they see you're successful, but more importantly, each one of you also know the Lord. And I'm proud of you for your relationship with that. And you're finding spouses who are, equally yoked. So it got me on a conversation talking to them. And then I went to talk to the boss, my wife. I said, what would you think if we wrote our story? She goes, what are you talking about? What do you think if we wrote our story about, raising 6 kids, like my daughter says, every time Dad had a major meeting in the house, it was we were either moving or Mom was pregnant or both. So I said, well, what would you, if we just write our story and kind of a story of hope and really be honest about it. And my wife, because she's smarter than I am, says, as long as we're not telling people how to raise their children, I don't want to do that. So, well, it's just our story. So again, I'm left to right. So my wife and I, she was a co-author on the book, and we kind of wrote, our story about what it was like to raise 6 kids of purpose and faith, get them up and move. Some of my kids had a little more adversity. In the grand scheme of things, none of my kids got involved in dope. Nobody got arrested, but a couple of them had some pretty significant adversity. My one daughter went off to college and because I wrote about it, and got involved in a relationship, and it went to shit. And when she came back to us, she was, my oldest daughter, just a mess. She was a physical, psychological, spiritual mess, and we kind of wondered if our daughter was ever going to come back to us. And but before I wrote about it, I would say I'm going to write about this, and I write that chapter, and I, gave it to her. I said, read this. If you're okay with this, if you allow me to do it. If not, I won't write it. I won't. My son Mark, who went off to the Coast Guard Academy and in his always struggled every year. He used to say, I think about 2 things. I think about God, I think about women, and I think about getting thrown out of here. And then in his end of his 3rd year, they threw him out because of academic problems. So here's this kid crushed. All he wanted to be he's the guy that'll tell you, all he wanted to be is Captain America. And so we wrote his story, now he's a DEA agent, I wrote about it, did the same thing. But then he had a wife, read it. You're okay with it? If not, I won't write it. So
Did you tell them the job of Captain America had already been filled by
yeah,
you?
no. So we did, we talked about, I had a nephew that was, killed in Iraq, and, how we dealt with that. I was fortunate enough to be with my mom, lived with us 5 years, to hold her hand while she passed from this life to the next, and got to talk about that, got to talk about drugs and sex and rock and roll and how we dealt with things and, mistakes that we made. And it was fun to do. It was literally fun. And we got a lot of great, endorsements from great faith-based teachers and speakers from around. And we're still trying to push it because we really think it would be a good resource for people. And so,
tell us the name of that book, because I love it.
It's called Raising Courageous Children in a Cowardly Culture. So, I used to say, every day the culture is antithetical. It's really anti anybody with faith and anti anybody with a moral positioning. And how do you operate there, raising kids when they're faced with that kind of shit every day? So we were real honest about it. So that went out, and we when we go out and speak, we were on a pretty good gig and speaking, my wife comes with me and we set up shop and we get to sell some of those things. They're fun, but we use them. I tell people it's a good resource if you want to know. And if anything, it's fun because this was funny shit in it too. We're very honest. And then when the COVID hit, in the midst of COVID, my oldest daughter I'll come up to me. She says, "Dad, why don't you write those stories again? When we were growing up." And that's the neat thing. You wonder, as you're pouring into your kids, and again, don't get me wrong. Don't think we had this happy-go-lucky great, but you wonder if you're pouring into them, are they getting it? Lord, are they getting this thing, man? Are they, so she said, "Dad, remember you used to tell us those stories when we were," so we had these routines. And so you go, when you could, right? When all of us, we were street agents. So when I could, we had this routine, kids come home, you got to do their homework, because my wife established all this. Get ready for bed at a certain time, shower, come in, you say prayers, talk a little bit, maybe read something. And then when I found my kids really liked when I made stories up, so I started making these stories up for them. And I would get very, very animated about it. So my daughter one day was telling me, she goes, "Dad, I want you," because she now has a couple of kids. She says, "I really want you to tell my oldest grandson is Braden. I want you to tell Braden those stories." I said, "That's your job. It's your job now to pass that." And then when COVID said, she said, "Dad, why don't you write about those?" So of course I went to the boss again. I said, "Wait, what do you think if we sat down?" I did like a 3-book series called Pop-Up's Amazing, Bedtime Stories. And that's the most recent one. So the characters are each book has 2 characters in it. They're kids. They go over to Pop-Up and Grandma's house, and inside the house there's a spare bedroom and there's a wagon, and it's a magical wagon, and they play in it. And it turns into everything from a little airplane to a submarine to a rocket ship. And there's always a nemesis in it, there's how they get out of it. But it's just a fun, imaginative story. That's it. And it was fun to do. So,
and for everybody listening, don't worry, we've got a book page. We'll put it all on here, but it's Pop's Amazing Bedtime Stories. It's The Underwater Voyage, The Aviator's Flight, and The Space Quest.
Yeah.
3 different books, plus The Eagle and the Eagles, a wisdom story for children and adults, Raising Courageous Children in a Cowardly Culture, The Battle for the Hearts and Minds of Our Children. You wrote that with your wife. And then your leadership book called Leadership at the Front Line. And it's from your site, right? So Frontline Leadership Group, and you're based out of North Texas, but you're available, as they say, to travel anywhere, right?
We're hoping. Unfortunately, we got a couple of really good friends of ours that are chiefs out here and stuff, and things are just now starting to open up. So we're hoping that we can get out. My wife's hoping too to get me out of the house, away from her. She works from at home, but again, like I said, if there are, it's funny because if there are people still around when I was growing up, they go, "No, this guy made this shit up."
This guy? We went back to a couple family reunions. I didn't get that. Mine was more like, this kid's still alive?
Yeah, you're
apparently
still.
I used to stick forks and outlets and stuff.
I should have told you this earlier, but just to when I say this, people go, "No, why you say that? You're always putting." I said, I'm just being real. I was a boxer academically as rocks. So when I graduated high school, when I say barely, there was 120. I was 117 academically. There are kids in the special needs class that were higher than me in GPA. Okay, that I knew for a fact. So anyway, join the service, get out, long ways around. The captain of the football team in my small high school, went on to West Point. Wonderful guy, terrific guy. Still know, Jeff Durnford. Wonderful guy. So fast forward some years later, I'm in intel school. Now I'm a young second lieutenant. I'm in intelligence school. I'm sitting in the officers club with a couple of guys from my company. I think was my wife with me? I don't remember. So I'm sitting there, and all I hear behind me go, Jimmy? I'm like, who the fuck? I turn around, and here's this captain looking at me. And he looks at me and goes, what are you doing here? Swear to God.
I'm a worker lease.
And I'm thinking, oh, no, I graduated, and I realized it's Captain Jeff Durnford, West Point graduate and everything else. And it dawned on me when and he's a wonderful guy. This is a terrific guy. But it dawned on me a little while ago. No wonder he said, what are you doing here? I can't imagine you being here. He was in the advanced course.
Be an inmate.
And I was in the basic course. So, but because these guys say, you shouldn't say that. I said, I'm just telling you, it's fun to tell when people go, hey,
Yeah.
He thought you'd be an inmate by then. Huh?
No. Well, you know what? I think they knew we weren't that, but you probably working at a gas station or an assembly line, which is nothing wrong with that. But, you shake your head and go, oh, boy.
But Captain America rose to the challenge, took it all on, and now you've got a fantastic story, man. I tell you.
Yeah, it is. It's great. And we leave a good legacy. Our kids, in all seriousness, it's hard to grow up in these families and not be impacted some way or another. Good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, Murph, you and I were talking, we do our best to raise our kids and they make decisions, that you got to deal with, and we've had to do that in life and stuff. But I was hoping for an investment banker, one of my kids, so I can have a big boat someday. And, they're in public service. I got a daughter who's in music ministry and works for the Air Force. So I got a son.
So you're rolling in dough, huh?
Yeah. It's they're all the rest of them in public.
Well, but if you got all of them combined and just said, "Hey, look, Daddy needs this is like a typical Fed seizure. I just need a percentage of the take
No,
each
forget
month,
it, because they're all married. Well, except for one, they're all married. I don't blame their wives or husbands. We ain't giving you a dime, old man. So, but it's great. We have 6 grandkids now, and I will say this. People used to say, "Where do you have grandkids?" I go, "Hey, listen, I came from a big family. I have a big family. Grandkid is just another mouth to feed, and it's not. They're the best.
They are.
It's just nothing
because
like
you can
them.
shake them up and give them back to the kids. It's like,
but there's something about when that little boy looks at you and goes, "Pop, pop," and comes running into your arms, my son Mark, who's actually him and his wife and his little girl living with us before they transfer up to Denver, to Colorado. He said, "Dad, I don't think you loved us like you love my daughter." I said, probably not. But
well, that's my kids will say. I wore glasses, and as the kids are growing up, you're wrestling, especially with the boys. And I'm like, no, don't touch my glasses. Let let Dad take his glasses off. Well, then the granddaughters come along. We got 5 granddaughters, and they reach up and when they're little, the first thing it touches your mustache, then your nose, and they reached up for my glasses. And all my kids, it was Christmas, all 4 of them said, "Don't touch Dad's glasses." And I'm looking at them going, "Shut up! She can touch whatever she wants to. She's fine."
You know what my daughter said to me one time? She goes, "Dad,
you never let us touch that.
You would have never let us get away with that." I go,
"That's
right."
And
this is what I told her. I go, "Honey, your father was very stupid when he was raising you. I'm sorry. There's certain things you realize that aren't important." But
I told mine, and you're still not allowed to touch Dad's glasses.
That's exactly.
Not that you're wrestling around in the ground with your grown children right now, Murph, but hopefully not.
Hell no.
Yeah.
Right? So, but it's been great, man. I got to be honest with you. One of the opportunities, especially here, talking about all these things, you look back and go, I've been a blessed man, and I don't say that lightly. I mean that, man.
Right.
I have been incredibly blessed in this life. We've had to deal with a lot of different things. I've had to deal with it. People say, "Oh, you have this, that, and the other." Hey, listen, man, I'm going to the doctor's office and he tells you have cancer. Okay, what do we got to do? I got to deal with that. So we had to deal. We had to deal with stuff like that. I'm cancer free now, but sometimes people hear me and they think, "Oh, somehow that you had some kind of super." Like, look, we're dealing with the same thing that everybody's dealing with: family issues, financial stuff, health issues. But we never give up, man. We always trained that way. You never get up. You keep going. Get back up. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Be faithful. Keep getting back up. And then for me, when people say, what is your biggest impact? to be perfectly honest with you, my biggest impact is when I take my alone time with the good Lord and just say, hey, I have no other thing to say but to thank you for where we're at, where my family's at, knowing full well that tomorrow's not promised. We only got X
Right.
amount of breaths, and that's what I tell people at the end of my, in the end of my talks and presentations. I said one of the things that I've realized the older I got is we only have X amount of breaths. And so what are you doing in the time that we have? And that's so important in a leadership position is what are you doing in the time that's been given to you? How are you going to impact men and women? How are you going to impact them for the better? How are you going to impact your family? Because you know as well as I do, we watched a lot of people lose everything to pursue, the brass ring or to pursue a promotion or position. And all of us, if we're fortunate enough to be laying on our beds, breathing our last breaths, every one of us is going to have regrets about should have forgiven more, should have loved more, we know that intrinsically, and yet we still do stupid shit. We still negate somebody. We still forget to call somebody up and tell them I love them, I forgive them, please forgive me. We do this. So I try to tell people in the grand scheme of things, get X amount of breaths. And I think some of the best men and women that I worked with is they understood I only got a moment. How do I impact people in this moment that's been given to me? And I think that's important. That puts things in perspective.
I had it put in perspective
Absolutely.
really good for me one time by a guy who says, look, I've talked to a lot of people who have died. I've talked to their families, said not once have I ever heard anybody on their deathbed go, gee, if I'd only spent more time at the office.
Yeah, of course. That's true. And we know that intrinsically, right? We know that. And yet, even to this day, we're involved in stuff. And I'm not trying to be a downer or anything. It's just, I think, what is it that keeps you going, man? What is it? Somebody said in retirement, what, you don't have gigs, you don't have this. I said, yeah, but we're still trying to pursue that. I have a good friend of mine, I call him an accountability brother, that we meet with every couple of weeks. COVID has kept us from this, but I was bitching one day about no gigs, no this. He said, you know what? How much time have you got to spend with your grandkids? I said, a lot. How about your kids? I said, a lot. He goes, that's a good thing. And I just sat back. I said, you know what? You're right. You're right. So the thing is, I'm telling people not to take for granted. I'm doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it brings you full circle. Say, hey, dumbass. Hey, listen, this is good opportunity. I get a paycheck every month. My wife's got a great job. When I used to bitch and complain about stuff, she goes, look around, you dumbass. Look at the house you have. We got a pontoon boat on a lake 20 miles from here. And you're complaining? What the hell's wrong with you? I mean,
I
really,
need
that's silly
bigger,
stuff.
Daddy needs a bigger boat. I need some more speaking gigs. So.
It's true. But that's what I mean. It's like I'm not content with that. I'd rather, somebody said, if you could wave a wand, what would it be? I said, I'd love to be able to speak at least, if I could, 2 times a month, even 3 times a month. Because as well as Murph, as much as your subject matter, and Morgan, you do too. I know with cybersecurity, you go over stuff over and over and over again and put that work in, but it's worth it. It's worth it. But anyway, brothers.
It is.
Well, I'll tell you what's been worth it. It's been worth it having you on, man, to hear your story.
Absolutely.
And look, when Murph first told me about you, I'm going, oh, he's going to come on Capra. We're going to hear something about how he was famous and related to a filmmaker. And no, but you know what you are? You're I got a friend of mine that was used to be on NYPD, cold case squad lieutenant up there. Same thing. Just there is a difference between East Coast and West Coast. But the one thing is when you make friends with people in New York, they're friends for life. They're not fair weather friends. They're friends for life. And even though you're in North Texas now, we found out we know some of the same folks now, between Steve Dye and, Troy Derby and stuff. I mean, you make friends for life. And so, Murph, again, when I thought he was going to go off, and steer me wrong, he has not. He has excelled. And you with your hands, dude, this Italian thing with your hands.
Hey, that's what shut the freaking thing off earlier. The hell?
Well,
I'm talking for 5 minutes and you both are still looking at me sort of way going, something's wrong. Then I realized Murph's trying to call me. What the hell? I gotta go. And I'm like a kid, honey, I did something to the computer.
Yeah, if you ever want to give Jimmy a stroke, just tie his hands together and ask him a question. He won't be able to answer.
I got to bring my hands up like this. Stop waving them around.
All right, brother. Well, hey, man, I got to tell you, what a great story, great stuff. And again, 2 years on the DEA, 21, almost 22 tons of coke, 12 million in cash. All I got to say is, what have you done for me lately, though?
I know. Well, again, you get those things because you work with great people, and you know what I mean? Yep. Guys and gals that want to do the same thing. So it's been, and those to this day, we have best friends for life, so
Yep.
That's how
It's
you
a
feel.
brotherhood.
Yeah, man. It's all good. It's all good. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot for
I
having
gotta
me
say,
on,
Jimmy,
guys. I really appreciate it. It was a fun
it's
time.
been an honor.
I told my wife
Been an
last
honor
night,
having
just
you on
going
here,
through the
buddy.
call the other day, I said, after that call, I got all energized and stuff. I said, maybe I should start writing again.
Good.
Write a book about Game of Crimes and the awesome guests we have on. We'll be waiting for it. We'll put it on our book page. All right.
All right, guys.
Everybody, this is us
It's been an
saluting you.
honor,
Thank you
brother.
for your service, sir. Everybody, stay tuned for the debrief. You know, Steve, 21 tons of cocaine and 12 million in cash, that is now would be considered personal use.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Especially if you're out in Washington or Oregon. Sorry, guys out there, but dang.
21 tons of cocaine and 12 million in cash. All, like you say, these guys were so arrogant, they thought they could get away with it as opposed to diversifying the risk, keeping the cash in one place and the dope in the other. They put it all together and it made it easy for Jimmy to, obviously Jimmy will tell you, and he said he didn't do this himself.
Right.
But the guy who spearhead, these guys are working this. And here's a guy who basically admitted to an LA sheriff, detective, sergeant. He says, man, I don't know what I'm doing. He was not afraid to ask for help. And because he was not afraid to ask for help and understood the value of working collaboratively with people,
Right.
they end up, like you say, at that time and for many years afterwards, having the largest seizure of cocaine ever.
And, and hearing his story about how he would call headquarters and they kept blowing him off. You got to understand, when you age out in law enforcement, if you're not willing to accept that everybody's changing and we as law enforcement need to change, it's time to pull the pin and retire. So thank the good Lord that Jimmy hung in there all the time. God bless him. Just him and his family, a family of service now, public service. This is like the all-American family. This could be the, what they call the Incredibles, in that cartoon.
Yeah, except the guy on The Incredibles has more hair than Jimmy, so.
Yeah, but I think Jimmy's got a bigger chest as he does. He's a big boy.
There's the power washer. We heard the power washer this time.
Sorry about that. They are right outside. They haven't done this all day till just now.
Murph is at the beach having fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here's what we'll do.
Get my bald spot suntan.
So here's what we'll do. I will simply sign for Murph, and whatever he says, I will do it in interpretive sign language, and we'll see if you guys can. Oh, it's a podcast. You can't see this. Anyway, too bad. So here we go. No, hey, but I'll tell you what a great episode. We got some really good stuff coming up. But our hats off to Jimmy Capra for coming on and telling just a fantastic story. So, hey, but if you liked that episode, if you liked what you heard, head on over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Remember, they both have 5 stars. So there's only one rating available for Game of Crimes on all of these services. It's 5 stars. We have decreed it. That's the way it is. Gone over and help us. We don't know exactly how it works. It's Magic. It's Magic Kingdom. It's David Blaine, all rolled up into one. Head on over to GameOfCrimesPodcast.com for more info about the show. We constantly update it. Follow us on that thing called social media at Game of Crimes on Twitter, at Game of Crimes Podcast on Facebook, and the Instagram. PayPal.com. Just use GameOfCrimesPodcast at gmail.com or PayPal.me/Game of Crimes, whatever it makes it easier for you. But really, got to go get on Patreon. We've just brought on so many more people this month. We're having great fun with our 911 series. Our random surprise that's coming out will be out towards the end of this month. It's going to be fun. Like I said, we just got through doing the review of Hannibal Lecter. Anthony Hopkins, what a great job he did talking about eating his liver with fava beans and an ice candy.
Gross. That's so gross. And he's as gross as you are, I have to say.
Not as gross as that frickin' power washer going on in the background.
Sorry.
All right, guys. Well, hey, look, we hope you enjoyed this, and we hope you guys like this episode, and we keep bringing more stuff to you. And we've got some surprises in store for you. We're going to be doing some things a little bit different with the format of the show. We're going to experiment with a couple things. Just give us your feedback. Send it to gameofcrimespodcast at gmail.com. Let us know what you think as we revise this. But in the meantime, thank you guys for being players in the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game of all, the Game of Crimes.